Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for October 4th, 2022 at 7 p.m. I would like to call the meeting to order. Thank you for joining. The first item on the agenda is to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Town Manager, do you have some
So first, before we
introductions,
get started, I would like to introduce not only the board, but also public and people that are here in the audience, the two new employees who just joined the town of Upton on Monday. We have Valerie Leonardo, who started as principal assessor, and then we have Amy Benina, who started a little earlier than that, but just about 2 weeks ago now, as our Land Use Inspectional Services Department supervisor. So basically coordinating the administrative tasks within the code, planning, conservation, and zoning department. So I wanted to have an opportunity just to introduce them to all of you and you to them. And maybe if they could just take turns and just say something briefly, just introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Valerie. I'm the new principal assessor, and I have 11.5 years experience as an assessor at the city of Framingham. And I'm excited about the new role here. Yes.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. And I'm Amy Benina, and I am actually resident of Upton as well, 44 Plain Street. And I have, my background is in facilities in the city, and then I worked locally for a local plumbing HVAC company pulling permits. So I was familiar with that process and what's entailed with that. And I used to have an organizational company, so I'm looking very forward to getting very organized in the permitting department. So thank you for having us. Thank you. Thank you.
awesome, great experience and traits. So
Welcome.
thank you.
Welcome on board.
Thank you.
Great. First up on the agenda, we have, thank you, DPW Director, Mr. Westgate, an update on the Grove Street Bridge.
Good evening. As everyone recalls, at our last town meeting, we received authorization to enter into a contract for engineering services and permitting for the replacement of Grove Street Bridge and the construction of the footbridge. If you recall, there was a healthy debate on town floor, and I was asked the question if we were able to solicit quotes for this particular service, to which I replied, yes, we can. And we did. And the result of which is in your packet. We went to the 3 largest firms that we have in the area that are well known for their bridge teams. We went to Beta, Ty and Bond, and Weston Sampson. And tonight I'm asking that you take a vote to authorize the town manager to sign the contract with Weston Sampson for an amount of $260,000 for the permitting and design of the Grove Street Bridge.
Questions?
Pretty straightforward. Almost did it. Always have something for
I know that's
why we're here.
article was $400,000 for permitting and design work. How is this gonna, when you see this contract, is that gonna leave us the necessary money that we need for the permitting portion?
Yes. If you attach the scope of services, in the scope of services, you will note that there was, it was all of the construction services for design, shop drawings, bidding process, awarding, permitting, including the utilities that need to be designed and a footbridge. All included in the scope of work.
So that is the only permitting number that's built into the contract?
The $260,000 includes permits.
Okay.
It's a great number. We did really well.
Yeah. Right, because right, like this is that 400,000, so this estimate is 394, which was the 400 in the article, right? And then there's 260. Basically, that's doing what was in the article for 260.
Correct.
So
Nothing has changed from the scope, from the original scope. All three vendors had the very same scope.
Yeah.
Weston and Sampson, Time Bond, and Beta. And obviously, Weston and Sampson was hungry.
yeah,
They were looking forward to this.
Yeah.
And it showed. Honestly, I had conversations with all three of them afterwards. Ty and Bond, they have a fantastic bridge team. They were so busy, I think they were kind of hoping they weren't going to get it, as I don't think they could fit it in.
yeah. Good. Any other questions?
I do not, only to say there's significant difference from the three quotes. So it's unusual you would see that much of a difference.
Yeah, that's why we do it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Maureen, any questions, comments?
No.
All right,
If I may, sir.
please.
This is also a posted meeting, the Finance Committee, with the purpose of discussing the articles on the special town meeting warrant. I don't know if Mr. Westgate is going to stick around to have the same conversation under agenda item 5, I believe it is. I would like to, if that is not going to happen,
Yeah.
I would like to have the opportunity to let
Yeah.
the Finance Committee have any questions.
Do you want to just open your meeting now and ask questions, or just ask questions, whatever?
Dennis, you can stay around here.
You're stuck with me.
You want to wait until then? Do it all at once?
And we'll, at that time, when we get
Yeah.
to that point, we'll open the meeting.
Okay,
2 on the screen and 3 here, so.
perfect. Okay.
I think that makes the most sense, because there's really two different, I understand it's the same question and the same article, but there's really two different facets to it.
Yeah.
So I think it makes more sense, we'll execute this and then pick this up in our discussion of the warrant.
1, 2, 3.
Sounds good.
That's going to be the only time tonight.
Come on, still early. We got time.
All right,
All right.
I can motion it if you're ready.
Great.
Okay. I move that the board vote to authorize the town manager to sign the contract with Weston and Sampson for the design and permitting of the Grove Street Bridge and the amount of $260,000 as outlined in the scope of services, replacement of Grove Street Bridge over Centerbrook, Upton, Mass, dated December 28, 2021, and as authorized by the May 5th, 2022 annual town meeting, Article 17.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries by unanimous action.
Thank you.
Thank you. Small Bridge Grant Program?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, thank you. When we apply for grants, we have to come before the board to make you aware of the grant we're going to be applying for and answer any questions, and that's why this is on the agenda. And we've had discussions about this before. Once again, Governor Baker has offered the Small Bridge Footprint Program of a maximum of $500,000. They have restricted the reimbursement part of it. So it's structured a little different this time around. If you recall, for Fowler Bridge, we could use the entire $500,000 to reimburse any part of the project, including design.
Yeah.
This time around, we can only use $100,000 to reimburse design, and the other $400,000 has to reimburse construction only. Needless to say, it's $500,000 and we want the money. So I'm asking that the board approve the DPW to pursue this.
Questions?
No, just a comment. I had mentioned this, we had this discussion probably back in February. So absolutely, we want to go after it. We were successful in achieving it last time under, of course, different leadership. It's an absolute, to me, it really should be ahead of the warrant article. So I'm absolutely in favor of applying for it.
I'm absolutely for applying for any amount of money.
We'll take any grant we can get.
That's right.
Excellent. Great. I will take a motion.
I'll take the motion. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the DPW director to apply for funding into the Small Bridge Grant Program for the replacement of the Grove Street Bridge and to authorize the town manager to sign necessary grant applications.
All those in favor?
I would second the motion.
Yes, good. We need that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries by unanimous action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Community approval of the Community Contact IT Grant Program.
So following the same line of approving for anything, I don't yet have the application pulled together, but this Friday is going to be a deadline for the Community Contact IT Grant Program. I'm working on pulling together a proposal with Steve Rackham from the Technology Committee. So we're looking at potentially one of two things. One, either assisting with offloading to virtual servers, document backup, basically document backup storage plan. The second thing is looking at preparing a plan for cybersecurity. So we're just kicking around some proposals so that basically can try to complete everything by Friday. So it is last minute, but before.
You can get it done. Great. Questions, comments?
How much for the grant?
Looking in sort of in the range around 50 to 60.
Great.
And you said that's a deadline. When is the award?
The award would be beginning of November for beginning to middle of November as far as award.
Okay.
Great.
I have nothing else.
All right. Any motion?
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the town manager to apply for funding under the Community Compact IT Grant Program.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries by unanimous action. Town manager report?
So, sort of a quick and dirty manager's report. Just to let you know, and I let the board know this morning, we had a all staff meeting. It was great to see everyone come together from town hall as well as from offices outside of town hall. Gave a chance for some of our longer serving employees to meet some of our newest serving employees and talk about some general staffing issues, some of the challenges that we've had, but yet successes that we've had in filling positions. Talked about everything from safety of the crosswalk to undergoing a compensation plan update to make sure that we're in line with some of our peer communities. So it was a good opportunity for us to all get together, not only to meet, but also to get some general updates. It is something that looking at scheduling on a regular basis every either every quarter or at least every 4 months to make sure that we have that opportunity to get together and to talk about things that sometimes we just are passing in the halls but don't have an opportunity for all of us to get on the same page.
Yeah.
We are small enough that it makes it pretty easy to do, but thankfully we do have the large meeting room because realize that we actually are more than what we sometimes in our head count. I'm like, oh, we only have like 15 people in town hall. But then once you get everyone, it's like, oh, we're pushing 30. So
where did you guys end up meeting?
We're in the, I want to call it Great
Main hall. Main hall.
Main hall. Okay.
Main hall.
Main hall.
Excellent.
So
Good.
that was good. Let the board know about some stuff other departments are doing. Recreation is holding a guided hike on the Walston Loop Trail on October 8th. They're going to be meeting in the parking lot on Elm Street. They're also coordinating a Halloween decorating contest. People interested in either can go to the recreation website or email recreation@uptonma.gov. As said, we welcomed Kathleen Byrne and, we welcomed Principal Assessor Valerie Leonardo. We also welcomed this week our new Assistant Town Clerk, Kathleen Byrne. So joining Denise Smith in Town Clerk's office. So it's great to have that office fully staffed. We are currently still recruiting. We have a number of positions we're hiring for, not only the Director of Elder and Social Services. We are going through the hiring process for a wastewater superintendent, Council on Aging Department Specialist, Town Planner, Director of Land Use Inspection Services, Land Use Inspection Services Department Specialist. We're going to have 4 openings for police officers and 2 dispatch positions. While we have had a lot of great success in filling some of the vacancies, we still have more key positions that we're looking at filling. As mentioned at the last meeting, when I sought permission to apply for Mass Office of Disability grant, did submit that grant on Friday. That grant will look at funding improving accessibility at 4 town facilities: Town Hall, police, fire stations, and DPW admin building. Following up on facilities and accessibility, town meeting had appropriated funding for the temporary ramp at Racine. Like with all things now post-COVID and distribution channels, there's been a delay in being able to procure the ramp, but they are finalizing the completion of that. And in a phone call today, they identified that they're looking at installation the end of October. So things are moving. I know from the library staff, they've been inquiring as far as the status of that. So that at least does seem to be moving forward, and hopefully as we look for finishing out the year, library will be able to start to have some of their programs in that space, because then at least they'll have accessibility issues resolved for a portion of that building. DPW has finished its milling and paving work on Mechanic, Glenview Street, Fisk Mill Road, and South Street. Remaining work is basically doing patching through driveway aprons as well as some other finish work. Lastly, and I've started to get some inquiries from people off the street, not only by email but also stopping into the office, regarding the pending increase in electric rates. So as the board may recall, back in March, Colonial Power had been assisting the town in putting together an aggregation plan that was submitted back in March. And basically it's been radio silence since. And I did arrange a call with Colonial Power to get an update on where we are, and also just so that I could be more aware of that project. And they identified that the Department of Utility is basically backlogged by about 6 months. And that realistically, with the change in administration, with the upcoming election, the backlog that is also in effect, they don't anticipate that the plan is going to be completed, be approved by DPU until early next year. So that'll be after the rates increase. I'm going to be working on a message to the community, sort of providing an update so we can at least get that out, but also prepare a draft letter for the board to consider at the next meeting to Representative Meridian and Senator Moore, although with the election it's going to be switching to Senator Fatman, to one, draw their attention to this and seek any assistance to try to move this along, since this is something that I think a lot of people are going to be impacted as we go into the heating season. So.
Do we know what the rate increases are?
I can get that. I've seen on the news that, because it will vary depending on the use type.
Yeah.
But essentially it's more than doubling.
Yeah.
So.
But not the kilowatt. It's the delivery charge.
It's the delivery charge.
It's a part of the bill, but still,
So
it's,
so half of, you have the production, then you have the delivery. That delivery is what's increasing significantly. I thought I had read that it was going up to essentially 30 cents a kilowatt. That's probably looking holistically, whether or not it comes down and it's realized by individual users.
yeah,
That'll become, something that people see on their bill coming up shortly.
Yeah.
But want to make sure that, people know, because if they recall, well, the board of selectmen had approved the plan, so now where are we?
yeah,
The approval by DPU is just it's the next step. The step after that will be for us to put out a request for proposals to then select a supplier. So we still have another step after that. And that's what's, knowing that that's going to easily be another month and a half, almost a 2-month process, want to make sure that people have an understanding, one, what we're faced with, that this is out of our control, that we'll try to work as quickly as possible. But realistically, we're going to need some of our legislative delegations' help to sort of push this along. And I'm sure the other towns that are ahead of us are probably doing the same thing. But any pressure is going to be probably needed. So.
okay,
Just unfortunate. We discussed this with Colonial Power. This was probably before us, 2 years ago, maybe longer than that, right? And it still isn't finalized, and we're not realizing those savings. So just unfortunate.
any other questions, comments
No,
for Joe?
thanks.
No, nothing else.
Okay, great. Next on the agenda is the period of the conversation where we open it up to any public input or any comments from the public. Anyone in the room or on the phone? Nobody's put up thumbs or raised hands or put in comments in the chat,
I think
so.
when you scrolled down, I saw something at the bottom, but I don't know if that was a hand raised or not.
I don't think so.
Oh, no, that's
Maybe
just
not.
timed out or something. Okay, great. We will move on to the joint meeting with Finance Committee. Mr. Chairman?
All right, Finance Committee was posted a meeting with the Board of Selectmen to discuss the warrant for the upcoming special town meeting. 3 members are present and 2 members are on the screen. We will dispense with the minutes approval and just go directly to the discussion of the warrant. What's it? Warrant 725? What?
Excellent. Great, so
Joe. Flash. EP. Flash.
Mr. Bergman, can you mute your phone, please?
I can do that, yes.
Thank you, sir. Does that help, Paul?
I just started flashing. I couldn't know what it meant.
There we go. Okay, so we are going to go through the town meeting warrant. How do you want to do this, Paul? Go through sort of one at a time, or what's your perspective?
The manager and I have had a discussion earlier today regarding the source of the funding of this, so I think I just defer to him.
Okay.
My recommendation would be just to follow the order we have in the warrant.
Great.
I did from the last meeting that we had where 2 of the members had, although I think it ended up being unanimous, questioning as far as the proposed bylaw change to the makeup of the Board of Assessors. I did remove that. All the other articles are here as was printed. So the first article would be the article for Grove Street Bridge. So Dennis would actually be the next 3. So.
Hi. Welcome back.
But Mr. Chairman, Article 1, I get to it.
It's in there,
It's in there.
page 18.
Is requesting approval for funding to replace the Grove Street Bridge, provide utilities across it, and a footbridge, pedestrian bridge, if you will, that is not in the bridge itself. So when I say it's not in the bridge, I mean it's not part of the traffic. It's attached to the bridge, but it's separate. So the pedestrians are safe in their crossing. One of the things that I know we talked about early on when we were discussing possibilities for a footbridge.
Yeah.
We don't have, obviously, because we just voted tonight, to enter into a contract with Lexington and Sampson. So we don't have a figure to put there yet. So this article was put together as a placeholder. I suspect that once we award the contract, the town manager signs it, within a short time, we will have the accurate figure to put in this place.
Mm-hmm.
And, just open it up to questions because I'm sure there are.
Questions?
Have you got any idea of how much it would be in the realm? Or any grants available?
Now I'm nervous. Our initial conversations with Beta when we were first putting this together, after the bridge team came out and deemed it to be a critical hazard, was, and I announced this number at town meeting, was about $1.5 million. Keep in mind, it's roughly the same span as the Fowler Bridge, which cost us, we bid that out several years ago, and that was just over $1 million. It has the same utilities going across it, plus it has sewer going across it that Fowler did not have, and it will have a footbridge as well. And the economy is stronger today, and everything is more expensive. That's a ballpark estimate. Really want to be able to provide a much more accurate number.
And you're going to apply for a grant, right?
Absolutely.
In conversations with residents, people are trying to get a little better understanding of what that footbridge and how that's going to look and how that's going to kind of feel. Is that going to have any sort of a division between the traffic and the footbridge? Will it be raised up similar to a sidewalk? Or will it have any separation from the actual asphalt surface?
So that we'll have an opportunity to have this discussion when we get through certain phases of the design, and we can take a look at different concepts. Keep in mind, they have to follow rules and regulations when they design it. But I think we'll have an opportunity to influence that design in some fashion that will probably please anybody that has concerns. But the goal, Steve, is to keep it separate, is to keep it attached to the bridge, but the pedestrian traffic separate than the road traffic. So if you picture a bridge with railings, instead of having a sidewalk on the inside of the railings where the traffic is, it would be on the outside of the rail.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
So people can understand that there will most likely be a railing between the pedestrian walkway and the oncoming traffic.
But keep in mind, this is the center of town. We have businesses in there.
Right.
Communities make this footbridge being used quite frequently.
Be a railing, something similar to a railing to keep somebody from going off into the brook, but the divider similar to like a Jersey barrier or something like that.
It would be it would be steel railings.
It's going to look a lot better than a Jersey barrier between the walkway and the bridge. We're going to make sure of it. It's going to look beautiful.
I wasn't considering the aesthetics, I was just asking about the design.
And like I said,
I hope you got the information that you are looking for.
both chairmen, we'll have opportunities to discuss the aesthetics of the bridge and the footbridge as we go through the design.
Yeah, no, that'll be great. Yeah, because, I mean, we talked about this before, right? Like Fowler Street came out good. It's a very sort of standard bridge, but because it is the center of town, it's going to be high visibility, high use. I'm sure there are ways within a budget to sort of work it out to make it look as nice as possible. I know that all the right people will do that. Any other questions on this one?
Well, that was it for my question, I guess now.
You plan to do construction?
I'm sorry.
When would you plan to be doing construction?
Our hope would be to put it out to bid sometime in late winter and have an early spring construction. That would be a hope. And there's going to be a lot to talk about during that time. For instance, as we all know, there's a business right across the river. And the easiest and the cheapest thing to do is to close the road down like we did for Fowler for a complete season and let them de-water and construct. But we will probably have to have some conversations on the impact to the surrounding businesses and how we can afford to, if we can afford to accommodate any of that. There will be plenty of those discussions.
Nick? Behind me, Sean? Rick?
They're both shaking their heads no.
They're both muted, but they're both shaking no.
No, Dennis did a great job of explaining.
Will be your eyes in the sky.
I assume this is going to be borrowed. This is not going to be a free cash or stabilization or anything like that.
Right. I guess what I would say, now getting over to, different things I've heard in the community, of course, there was quite a lively debate about the engineering side of this. When people heard that $1.5 million cost, people were upset. And I'm hearing different things in the community about that. What I'd like to see happen is the application for the grant. I'd like to see that be successful. Because in the past, my experience in town government is twofold. We've done 2 bridges, and both times the roads actually were closed both times. There was no, partial traffic flow. So I think that's an unfortunate reality, as people and businesses are going to have to accommodate the fact most likely it would be closed. But also, the town has never had to accept the full burden and cost of the bridge. We did Fisk Mill, we split that evenly with Milford, and of course, Fowler, as you mentioned earlier, there was a $500,000 grant that was received in advance of the construction.
No, sir. That was a reimbursement. After we did the bridge, actually before we finished the bridge, Kenny Coster and I applied for the reimbursement based on the engineering services and several invoices that we had received from Balthazar for the beginning of the bridge and got the $500,000 back.
That's correct, but the acceptance of the grant was long in advance of the construction of the bridge. Because that was before your time, I know it for a fact.
Yes.
So that the application and acceptance of the grant should be in front of the warrant article. So we should really wait, in my opinion, we should wait on this, get that application off, let's get that accepted, then we put the article forward. And again, I understand we pay for it, the reimbursement comes after. The state doesn't front you the $500,000, but you're getting it. There's no way you don't receive the $500,000. It's already been accepted. I know this because previous DPW director and 2 town managers ago, they had a nice little picture in the paper of them accepting that $500,000 grant. Even though you don't get it up front, you get it on the back end of the project. But again, I would hate to see us go and ask the taxpayer for a number that's going to sound like 1.1 million and then find out we don't get the small bridge grant. So I'd rather see that application process in advance. I'm thinking it would be successful. I don't see any reason why it would not be. And then again, we can ask for the monies that we need to construct the bridge.
Through the chair, if I may.
Please.
I understand completely, and I agree with you, with the exception of, regardless if we get the grant approval or not, we will still have to spend the money it costs to construct the bridge. So if it's going to cost $1.5 million, we still have to expend that fund to get reimbursed. You know what I mean?
That's true, but I think we're in a much better competitive advantage if we apply for the grant in advance of the article. Once we've approved money, how do you go backwards from there?
And you can apply for the grant in front of an article, but you can't apply for the grant in front of engineering services because it's a $500,000 grant, so it's not a one-pager with a check the boxes and sign out at the bottom. It's quite involved, requires a bunch of engineering. I think almost to the 25% design stage before you even qualify for the grant. So I do appreciate what you're saying. I do. And I don't disagree.
And again, that's why, I have no problem earlier in the agenda, moving forward, let's get that contract exercised, or executed, I should say, so that we can move forward. But again, in my opinion, we are putting the buggy in front of the horse. I think that we should apply for that grant, get that 500, even if we, use an abbreviated schedule. Again, we can call a special town meeting at any point if this is a pressing matter and you say, really want to get this in front of the taxpayer in February, you want to be ahead of the construction schedule, we can certainly have a special meeting to address this particular article. But again, in my opinion, I don't like putting it forward in advance of acceptance of that grant.
Through the chair?
Sure.
So a couple of things come to mind. What would happen if we didn't get the grant? Would we not replace the bridge?
We'd be on a delayed schedule.
And
How
the-
often is the small bridge grant offered? Is it annually?
Right now it is, but it goes like it did after Fowler Bridge. It went away for several years, and it was just restored this year. But it was gone for quite a while. My second question would be, I guess, or comment would be, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that the bridge has been deemed a critical hazard. It has critical hazards associated with its structure, meaning that it's now not on the annual inspection of the bridge team from MassDOT. They're out there every 3 to 6 months. They've already been out there twice since the last town meeting. And they're in contact with me, and they are assured that we're moving forward. At any time, if we give them an indication that we're going to stall, or we're going to postpone, or we're going to wait longer, they can tell us to close that bridge. I just want to make sure people understand that.
Yes, you had forwarded me the inspection report. It was very detailed, great information. I can't speak to what their timetable is and, when they think they may want to close it.
Maureen, do you have questions or comments?
Yeah, so we have to have a 25% design before we can even apply for.
No, I think it's less than that, but I think that that's what they're looking to see as a goal. I think they're looking to see that you have enough information. You have to have enough information to fill out the grant application. And like I said, it's not a one-pager of check boxes and you sign at the bottom promising to spend the money you're supposed to. It's much more detailed than that, where they want to know the span of the bridge, the type of bridge you're going to be putting up, what you're going to be using for PSI in your concrete, how you're going to meet Chapter 85 requirements. All of these things are spelled out. You have to have the engineering firm, the bridge specialists on board and working on that with you.
So if we don't put it on this town meeting, you won't be able to go out for the bid process until probably spring, right? Or after annual town meeting.
And so, or as Natalia indicated, if we have a special. Well, I wouldn't be able to do anything until town meeting authorized the expense.
And
We have enough, I'm sorry, we have enough to go forward with investigating the grant, because we have an engineering firm that we are now going to have on board and sign a contract with, and we're immediately going to go after that grant as quickly as we can. But I won't be able to put it out to bid. And I think the engineering firm would tell you, I know in my initial conversations with them, for projects like this, timing is everything. You kind of want to do mid to late winter bid where, because that's where the hungry bidders come out and looking to set their next construction season up for work. If you wait too long, you get people who are already comfortable with their workload, so they throw rather high prices because it's not the end of the world if they don't get the job.
Any other questions on this one?
No, I have none.
Mr. Flaherty?
I guess my only question would be, given your druthers, Dennis, this is something that should not be delayed.
I can't sit here as your DPW director and recommend it. I don't know what MassDOT would do. I don't know if we can hold them off with reassurance that we're just delaying it a little and we're gonna come back with a special in February, as Steve suggested, and then we're gonna appropriate the funding, and we just wanna see the grant application go through first. I can't speak to them. I've seen them close bridges before, and I know they won't blink.
Is there any way that this could qualify under, excuse me, under ARPA funding?
I would have to look into that, I don't know.
It's just a, you know, just a question in passing.
It's a good one.
I think from some reading I've done on that, I think definitely the pedestrian walkway part of that bridge, you could definitely use ARPA funding for that. So again, I think that's my backup plan, is to use some ARPA funding to offset the cost of it. But from what I've read, if you're expanding any sort of pedestrian traffic, bicycle traffic, things of that nature, you can use ARPA funding for that. But as I think Maureen mentioned a few meetings ago, you can't use it for asphalt.
No.
So if we were just repaving roads, we couldn't do that.
But the issue also becomes that we know, we have reason to believe that the grant money, the bridge grant project program is still there. You know, should this be put off a year, God forbid, 2, is that grant, is the bridge program going to be there, which case you're going to pay for it anyway, and instead of being $1.2 million, it's going to be $1.6 million.
The bridge, once we are approved for the grant, we have a certain amount of time to apply for the reimbursement. If you recall, we ran into some snags with Fowler because that had Chapter 91 involved for endangered species, and we ended up, the permitting alone threw us out an extra 6 months, and we were not able to apply for the reimbursement in time. And we actually applied for an extension, and they gave us another 8 months or so to apply for the reimbursement. But technically, you're supposed to apply for the reimbursement within a given amount of time, and off the top of my head, I don't know what that is. Once you're approved for it, you're approved for it, but then the clock ticks.
Right. I think grand total, it was almost 2 years before we got that final reimbursement on Fowler Street.
Is there any downside in terms of applying for the grant to either having the approval from town meeting before we apply for the grant, or waiting until after we get the grant to get the approval? Like, do they say, oh, well, they already funded it, so they don't need the grant? I mean, I think that maybe is part of it. Your concern is?
Yes, yeah, I would think once the money's appropriated, there will be no incentive for the state to issue that, you know.
They do in the past, though. They've always reimbursed once you've been approved for a grant. That money is set aside.
No, I'm saying even approving the grant, right? You're granting the grant,
So,
if you will.
It's a good question. I've had some experience on this, especially with our finance director, Kenny Costa. And if Kenny was here, I think he would confirm this. So we will apply for the reimbursement as quickly as possible. We will know if we get the grant, most likely before a contract is awarded or shovel goes in the ground. Kenny will borrow accordingly. So if we know we have the grant, Kenny's going to back that out and know that after we expend the first $500,000, we will apply for reimbursement. So he won't, let's say for argument's sake, the bridge was $1.5 million, and we got the grant, we're successful for $500,000. He knows we have it coming. He's not going to borrow 1.5.
My question is a little bit different than that. My question is, we're going to be applying to the state for a small bridge grant. When they receive that application, do they have any weighting or criteria when they're reviewing that application or scoring that application that considers whether or not the bridge funding has already been approved at town meeting or not?
I don't know the answer to that.
Right, because I think that's that's part of the concern, right? Is if we get the approval from town meeting, they're like, oh, Upton's all set, they're going to pay for their bridge, we're going to go give Leicester $500,000 because they haven't approved that bridge and they obviously need the help and Upton doesn't, right? So I think we just want to be mindful that we're not sending that kind of a message or putting ourselves at any kind of a disadvantage by approving the full amount of funding the bridge without having the grant, so that they don't give us less of a short shift because of it. So.
Understood.
As working in the past with the state, we've always appropriated the cost of the project.
Yeah, I mean, I can't,
And
yeah.
at town meeting, and they know that, they know you
Yeah, it's
have
the
to do
borrowing
that.
part that I think he was talking about. Yeah, no, I totally, and I mean, I think that we know we're gonna replace the bridge. It's in the center of our town.
Sure.
We've got small businesses there, like, there's nowhere we're not gonna replace it. So I think it's just a question of what's our comfort level with waiting 6 months or 12 months before we even bring it to town meeting? What's the risk of that? And the risk is that we don't get the grant anyway, and we've lost a bunch of time, and we increased the risk is that the state closes the bridge. The risk is that we don't get the grant anyway, and the risk is that it ends up costing more the longer we wait because inflation is going up and the market's not looking great for the next couple of years. So those are the risks of waiting. The risks of doing it now are simply the potential that we somehow disadvantage ourselves for getting the state grant. I don't know I can't imagine that would be the case, but again, I don't know what their scoring criteria are for getting the grant.
I can't imagine, Mr. Chairman, that it would be, because it's a reimbursement grant, like Chapter 90.
That's what I mean, it's
We
not,
appropriate the funds on every annual town meeting for Chapter 90.
and it comes back.
And we spend them out of that account, and then at the end of the year, I apply for reimbursement, and Kenny puts it back.
I tend to agree with you. I think that risk is very low that we disadvantage ourselves and then.
Again, I think the differences are, we know what that money is. The
Yeah.
differences with Chapter 90 is we already know ahead of time, DLS will tell us months in advance what Chapter 90 money is. I think last year it was what, 314,000 roughly? So we know that number already, we know it's our money.
Yeah,
In this case, we don't know if we're getting that grant or not, which is again,
Right,
it's-
yeah.
I'm only going by past performance.
Right.
Past performances, we knew we got that grant.
do we have any sense? I haven't been a part of building a lot of bridges. Like how often does the state sort of approve this $500,000 versus not? Like, is there
So they run out of money.
till they run out of money?
They
So this,
appropriate a certain amount of money that lasts them so long.
Yeah.
That's what happened with the last round.
okay, so is it that they, one second, please. If they don't run out of money, are they saying no, or do they say yes to everybody until they run out of money? Do we have a sense of that? We don't know.
I don't know of any community that's applied that didn't get it.
Yeah, so that's what I'm wondering. Like, it's not like a nonprofit grant where, there's 100 applicants and one person gets it. It sounds like
The
it's,
thing you're missing is the state is flush with cash. They have more money than they know what to do with. So it seems to me to be unlikely that they'd, back off the program such as this, but one never knows, but,
yeah,
it's no secret that how many $1 billion,
yeah. So from my perspective, the risk of rising costs, the risk of the bridge getting closed, and I can't even see a scenario we would be putting ourselves at a disadvantage for getting the $500,000. I would support keeping it on, but
I would also.
so we can.
Can I mention one thing? What about the opposite of having it approved being more favorable for the state to reimburse and fund?
Yeah.
So it's done, we know we're going forward with it, we know the project's gonna happen, rather than waiting and then having to get the reimbursement and then say we're not doing it, and then they have to.
It removes uncertainty in their consideration process because they
Right.
say, hey, no, I don't either, right? You're exactly right? It could be,
Well, I think
It
that's
could be
why
an
they have the
advantage.
timetable. They have that timetable of reimbursement in case it fails a town meeting, then they'll give you the money.
Yeah.
But I think the offset is you gotta go with what got you here, what was successful in the past, and what was successful in the past was getting the grant secured and then putting your article forward. In my opinion, when the state looks at it, I think you're at a disadvantage. There's no way that's an open checkbook and everybody gets it. Somebody's gonna get the no.
well,
But just hope it's not us.
that's what you think.
My opinion.
That's what you think. And we think something else. So we
We'll find out.
we will find out soon enough.
Same scenario?
No, Follow was nowhere near, I'm sorry, through the chair.
Please.
Follow was nowhere near the condition this bridge is in. We had some weight restrictions on it, and we had some efficiency ratings, but we didn't have a critical, like we have on this.
We had time.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
All right, anything else on this article? All right, next one.
So at least these, we should be able to, probably just like town meeting, number one is the most controversial, which we may want to swap the order, get some momentum to approving article. But number two being Warren Street.
Sure. Through the chair.
Please.
So this is the next part of our ongoing saga of the parking lot in Warren Street. The board voted a couple years ago now to close down the road. And that's a temporary closure in the eyes of MassDOT because it's a public way and there are legalities to actually doing what we want to do with that portion of the road and perhaps look at redoing the parking lot to accommodate more parking spaces and doing something with that segment of road that we're blocked off into perhaps a park or anything else we desire. But before we can do that, there's a legality associated with the Department of Transportation still sees that as a public way. So this is simply the mechanics of getting that to no longer be a public way. And there are a couple of hurdles that we have to go through with this, and we're in the process of the town manager and myself and KP Law are working on how we received Warren Street to begin with, and it's very important that we discover that. If it was a fee taken and the property was owned by the town, and that's how we laid it out as a public way, then when we discontinue it by town meeting authorization, it still remains our property, and we can do with it as we wish. However, if it was an easement and we simply discontinue it, then that property reverts back to the property owners, to the center line of the road that abut it, and it would no longer be our property. I'm talking about the segment that's blocked off only. The parking lot is deeded to the town. So we're in the process of determining that and how we have to handle that. But the goal of the article is necessity that we do this in order to do anything further with that property. And we will uncover, as I said, we're working on it now, we will uncover the ownership of that segment of road prior to town meeting so that we do it appropriately.
Yep. Questions, comments?
No, that was pretty much it. It's basically between, the section that we're discussing is between the two Jersey barriers, and it's really just a matter of who the property is going to revert back to.
Yes.
And again, if there's an issue, I would assume KP would advise us to pull the article if there's any issues. Okay.
Good. Mr. Flaherty?
No, I don't see any dollar amount here, so I'm assuming that this will be taken care of out of the legal line item. Anybody in the finance committee have any questions, Sean? Rick behind me?
No?
Nick? Steve, anything else?
No. Right.
I think we're good, Mr. Sanders.
3.
Pocket Road.
To the chair.
Please.
Article 3 is asking the town floor to grant permission for the Board of Selectmen to grant an easement on Crockett Road. We've had this discussion before, but I'll go back through it once more. Crockett Road, portion of it is not in Upton. It's towards the outer end of the easterly side, and it abuts a pond, and there are a lot of homes out there that have very small properties associated with them because they're right on the pond. But they own property on the other side of the road, and the road is a public way. Some of these properties through the years have put their septic systems on the other side of the road prior to my arrival. And it's okay. The correct way to do it though is because you're crossing a public way with a utility, there needs to be some kind of an agreement, legal agreement between the homeowner and homeowners in perpetuity and the town that assigns responsibilities and liabilities. And so what we're asking the town floor to do here is to grant the Board of Selectmen permission to enter into an agreement that is drawn up through legal counsel to allow for an easement across Crockett Road for a wastewater utility so that the homeowners can use their property on the other side of the road for their Title V their houses on the pond side. This cleans it up.
Very good.
Comments?
Yeah.
All set?
Was there any other parcels along that road that have the same issue that you think we'll have to address in the future?
I think we will have to in the future, but I have a little bit of homework to do to discover them all.
Good.
Okay, no cost, so you're good.
I think we're good, unless anybody else,
All right.
like, everything has a cost.
4.
So this next article is a repeat from annual town meeting, because as we discussed before, there was an administrative task in the board holding a public layout hearing for us to formally and correctly accept Summer Circle as a town way. We did hold that layout hearing on August 16th, and the board did vote to accept the layout. So this article will once again seek town meeting's authorization and approval to accept Summers Circle as a public way.
Questions?
I feel like we've been here before.
I feel like, yeah, deja vu all over
Like
again.
I had questions 6 months ago.
Yeah, exactly. I would love if anybody that's in a chair that's not here that we can't see would love to join us. You won't be disruptive if you move your chairs and come over in this section. I don't want you to feel like you have to stay over there because you don't want to make noise moving a chair or walk in front of people or anything like that. So come on in if you would like. We'd love it. Thank you. Okay.
Problems with the last couple of street acceptances, we had to, it went through twice, right? Xavier Drive.
Azalea was twice, and I'm not even sure if we did a layout on that one, so.
Article 5.
So we have Chief Bradley coming up to speak to this.
Evening.
You know what, Chief? Bring more chairs in if you want. Bring them in. There's chairs over here too if you want. All right, sorry, sir.
It's okay. So basically, Article 5 is to fund an additional replacement police cruiser. We had discussed this during the budget process of returning to our prior plan of purchasing or replacing 2 vehicles every year. So one was in the line item in the budget, and this is the article for the capital. So $55,000 includes also replacing the equipment inside, the cages, seats, so forth, which are not compatible with the new designs. It includes the expected price increases that we're seeing. Hopefully the state bids will be set in the next couple of weeks. According to our vendors, this is a pretty good number that they provided.
Questions?
2 quick questions for you. I'm assuming, or as I recall in our budget presentation, I think we always had appropriated 45,000. So I see 55,000 as the number there, and you're attributing that to an increase in costs and again, upfitting the cruiser.
Yeah, vehicle pricing and upfitting costs of increased.
A similar vehicle, not a pickup truck. This is going to be a similar to the other interceptors that you have?
Correct.
Okay. That'd be question 1. And question 2, I seem to remember in a previous conversation, I don't know if it was one of the budget presentations, you have every other year replacing 2 cruisers. I thought this was going to be every 4 years replacing 2 cruisers.
Our plan in the past was every other year. We were fortunate or not so fortunate, we had a vehicle that was totaled 2 years back, and our insurance policy gives us replacement new, so that kind of got us through a few years without purchasing additional vehicles.
Okay. So that with the addition to this vehicle, how many, and obviously you're going to discard or auction off one of the old ones, how many vehicles will be in the fleet after this one?
So we have 8 total now, and we'll continue with 8 even with the replacements. So we have Just to give you an idea of mileage, one vehicle, 25,000, second vehicle, 118, and another vehicle, 95,000, fourth one down, 90,000. So this will help us bring the mileage down and make them more mileage.
Can I just ask one question? So the 45 that you had in the budget, does that cover the vehicle?
It is.
Nothing to do with this, it is.
It is, that's covering the other.
What's the availability of this?
Well, that's a $1 million question.
Yeah.
That's a question. It can be a trick question. So there are some vehicles on the ground now. Those may be taken up pretty, so there may be a delay in getting the vehicle. But it all depends on time.
We had this conversation the other day. Is this MHQ or one of the other state vendors?
It could be one of three, either MHQ, Colonial, or the main three that we look at for state bids for vehicles.
And can I assume these are all Fords?
For this vehicle, they're all Fords, yes.
And this is going to be the Interceptor.
This will be a utility interceptor.
The other one that we're going to talk about in a minute is not an Interceptor.
It's not an interceptor, that's a fire vehicle.
Yeah, is that more readily available? Excuse me.
Yes and no. Depends on the timing.
Okay.
Every other
All
vehicle.
right. Anybody else? Finance committee have any questions on this?
You know, John, Rick?
I'll
No more
let you know if
questions.
they do. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Somebody, yeah?
Nope,
Said no
she
question.
said no questions.
Okay.
I'll watch.
Guess we're good, Mr. Chairman.
Article 6, sir.
The only thing I was gonna
Please.
make mention is a 3 to 4 month lead time this time of year is not a bad thing. You get through the winter,
Yeah.
get the last miles out of the old stuff, and then usher in the new, so. With the harsh New England winters, it's not always a bad thing having to wait.
This vehicle's looking at 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. So Article 6 is additional funding for police training, $12,000 for police training. We anticipated replacing 2 officers this year. Money was in the budget and the training item. We plan to do that. We'll actually have 4 vacancies. Depending on what our applicants look like, we may have to send all 4 to the academy. So the academy costs about $1,300 per officer, plus another $2,000. So we're looking for an additional $12,000 to help us get through this process.
I didn't hear both numbers. You said it was how much for training and how much for equipment?
$3,200
2,000.
and approximately $2,000 for equipment, ammunition. So
2,000.
And these are people who are already in, position is already in the budget.
the positions are in the budget, the replacements. We have 2 that are retiring, 1 that appears is moving on, and we had 1 that left law enforcement altogether. We have a candidate on board for 1 of the positions, and we're looking at the numbers, academy start date.
Good.
Anybody up there, Brett? Back on, Rob? Rick?
We're good.
Very good.
There's any hands up?
All right. Give us the high sign or something if you guys have a question, so just so we know. See your head
Got it.
nods. Okay.
Just a question, Chief, is there a commitment from these, that if you send them to the academy, are they here for a period of time, or are they going to spend?
We'd like them to have at least a 2-year commitment to us. There are other municipalities that have tried to enforce agreements of specific years. It's very difficult to enforce if somebody decides to leave elsewhere. So it's a commitment. Look, a candidate is going to make that commitment, but that's okay.
So, some years ago, Nick, if I may, Mr. Chairman, we did this, that I think we trained at least 2, and I'm not sure another one. We hired them, we trained them, bought them books, sent them to school, and then they went to Hopkinton, so.
I mean, recent history, we've been fortunate, we've been able to get academy trained and transfers from other departments, some savings. But with the job market the way it is right now, I'm confident I'll be able to do that.
But going forward, there's a fellow kid in this town that's going to the Fitchburg Academy. I think he's looking longingly at being one of your underlings.
Sure, in 2 to 3 years, we'll have additional openings.
Article
You had
7.
some success in the past with National Guard, their training program with the academy. They have no candidates that were available or nobody that applied.
There isn't an academy that's in right now, so the last one, we hired 2 people from that National Guard Academy that was put on through Mr. Beatty. We were able to get 2 people trained out of that. There isn't an academy that's in place right now. So, you know, the big part of it is timing and hiring as well, depending on how many academies are ongoing and how many sub-sponsors are in those academies. Sometimes you can attract one that doesn't have a job yet. But every community in the Commonwealth is trying to hire police officers right now, so it's still difficult.
Article 7.
Okay, Article 7. Article 7 is the replacement of the fire chief's command vehicle. Our vehicle is a 2013 Ford Explorer, over 100,000 miles. We've had many mechanical failures. We've replaced manifolds, and it's really outlived its useful life. So with that, we are anticipating, we have a few different quotes, a couple different vehicles we're looking at. There should be another SUV or a pickup truck that has a cab that you can put a command radio unit in for fire scenes. So we're going back and forth on cost and availability, but that $55,000 appears to be a good number.
Between another Ford and what was the other vehicle?
Could be a Ford, could be a Chevy, either a utility or a pickup truck. We're looking at cost and availability right now. But we have a few that are all in that price range with how we need to outfit.
I gotta say, being in the automotive business, it's hard to believe a 2013 vehicle with 100,000 miles is worn out already. It's just, I understand it can have mechanical issues, but it's just amazing that we can't get more than 9 years out of the vehicle.
Yeah, I mean,
This isn't a cruiser where it's racing off to places and idling for 8-10 hours at a time, or an entire shift. You would think that a fire command vehicle, I mean, Paul, you certainly remember the good old days when police chief and fire chief drove the oldest cars in the fleet. Whatever got retired as a cruiser got handed down to the chiefs. It's just amazing.
Well, not that far along, they used to hand the retired police guy to the incoming town manager.
The town manager, right? So our highest command drove our oldest rickety vehicle. Now, I just, like I say.
I remember Mrs. Robinson said to me the first time I met her, she said, "Old police car is the bane of every town manager."
Any other questions?
Good quote.
I don't see any on the video here. Oh, Rick has a question.
No questions. We're good.
Okay, thank you.
Just want to make sure you're paying attention, Mr. McGuire.
Yeah,
I am. It's every word.
we're getting this dialed in. Okay.
okay, Article 8 is a replacement power stretcher and power pad for the older ambulance to update it to match basically the stretcher that's in the newest ambulance. The old stretcher is a 2008 PowerFlex, which was top of the line when we purchased it, but it's really outlived its design and service life. It's been a source of maintenance problems requiring frequent service visits. It's had some mechanical failures. It's caused injuries to first responders. This is they call an old hooking ampler system, which has been prone to failure, and it's not up to today's standards. So the new unit basically prevents or reduces injuries to responders and patients. It loads, it power loads. Unfortunately, patients are typically heavier these days. So this really does a good job of loading patients and making sure that it's done safely. So we've applied for a grant to replace, to purchase 2 stretchers that we're waiting to hear. So, we're fortunate enough to get the grants, and we would pass over this on the town meeting for at a later date. We would certainly return the funds.
And this was the additional stretcher was referred to and discussed as part, in town meeting, as part of the purchase of new Med 1.
So Med 1's article was $350,000. That included the $60,000+ stretcher.
Yeah.
Right now, we're leasing a stretcher while we're waiting to hear for the grant before we commit to the stretcher for Med 1.
Yeah.
And hopefully update Med 2 so we can matching stretchers.
What is the typical life expectancy of the stretcher? You said there's one that you're going to be replacing. I'm assuming that would be in.
Yeah,
Obviously, we got rid of our old ambulance, so we got an ambulance now that's 8 or 10 years old. So is that about the life expectancy of a stretcher, or are we just updating to a more modern?
So the one that's in service now is a 2008 model. So that's 14 years old. And it's definitely outlived its useful life. We would hope in the power stretchers we would get hopefully 8 to 10 years. With the pricing and the way structure it now, you get 6 years of maintenance that's included in the price. So it certainly gets you through the first 6 years. And hopefully you can get through a few more years after that.
Anything else? Oh, okay. Next.
We're buying a truck, we're buying a car for $55,000, we're paying $63,000 to buy a stretcher.
Are you a yes on this article, Paul?
66.
66.
If it's a power stretcher, maybe we can have the chief drive that around.
Discussing this amongst themselves.
You would think for the cost that you would be able to drive it around as well.
So that was the question that I had originally.
Right, self-motivated. Move yourself along.
Send them right to the hospital on the stretcher. Unfortunately,
Good.
What's the availability of these? Is the supply chain affected the stretcher?
So we are probably 2 to 3 months delivery. At least sooner, but better than
The vehicles, yeah. Yeah.
Our vendor is aware of our grant process and that we're looking to purchase these, so they're trying to hold these for us.
How much longer before you'll know about the grant acceptance? Did they issue that?
Yeah, so it's a federal grant process, it's the AFG grant. They tend to release every week, they release a series of grants. So hopefully over the next 4 to 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
6 weeks, we'll have an answer.
Every Friday, I check.
Good. Okay. Any other questions?
I guess in theory, you'd always like to know if you're going to get the grant first before you put the article out there.
It's the same,
In
as the
theory,
bridge.
It's the same as the bridge. In theory, I'd like to kick this the week you get that grant.
As with
Paul
the bridge,
says.
we need a stretcher.
Yeah. When somebody take a note, we should have this conversation, Steve, in January, and we can look back and say, did it work or didn't it
We
work?
win or didn't.
Did we win or lose?
Right.
Be good.
I won't let you forget.
I was going to say,
I'm
you
feeling confident.
might let me forget, depending upon how it goes.
That's right. That's true. Selected, right?
Exactly. I'll forget either way. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yep. Article 9,
Okay, so.
minivan.
Article 9, as the board knows, at the May 2nd annual town meeting, town meeting approved $45,000 towards funding the purchase of 14 passenger minibus. This is sort of leveraging a grant of $42,400 from the Rockwood Meadows Van Donation Fund to purchase the van. We went to try to find vans that were available, and Chief Marchand has been doing a great job scouring all ends of the earth to try to find a van, because just like as we said, it is hard to find these vehicles. However, vans that we did find were basically, and one that potentially is still available, were about $26,000 short. Seeking appropriation up to 40 to acquire the van, rather than trying to say, well, let's just do 30. I just would be nervous if there was any additional cost, if there were things that cause escalation. I'd hate to miss it by a couple grand. So just looking for authorization up to 40. Anything that, of course, does not get used will get turned back. But we are finding, just like with everything else, costs are escalating. So a quote that was used back from the beginning of the year, for the original estimates, just is not a real world figure anymore.
Do you think you'll have a solid number in advance of town meeting where we can adjust that number down, or what is your gut feeling at this?
I think we'll have a better idea. I still would be asking for the full appropriation, just because once we sign contracts and all those things, we could give maybe more comfort saying that it looks like we are going to be around the 20 to 30. But if all of a sudden that van is not then available, or they sell it, because we can't sign a contract to acquire a van until we have funds in place. Town finance director needs to sign on any contracts. So without the funding in place, we can't sign a contract. A van that potentially will be available, if that then isn't, then we have to look for other vans, and then we could be looking at that increased cost.
Do you think it would make sense to just reword this to say up to, because it just says the amount? I don't know how we typically handle that. Does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, I can easily say up to,
Right. Borrow a sum up to $40,000 or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And the rest of the math is in the explanation at the bottom, so I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Just to put people's mind at ease.
Yep.
And what's the availability and lead time on this?
Well, that's where there, at least from last communications, there was still van available. It comes down to timing.
So there was a limited, when we started the search for the van, there was a limited production of the end of year of the 22 chassis that they had available. It was 12 vans. As we've been going through this process, I was trying to like begging him to sign something that said we could tie up the van, but we couldn't. There was 8 of the 12 were sold. There's not a lot of these. Even the different vendors, they all said, "Well, call this guy." That might have. There's very limited amount of these things that are actually built. That are what we call 12 and 2. 12 people, two handicap accents, and a certain gas engine, certain chassis. So there potentially can be, but we may end up having to go to wait until 23. And I personally looked at the one we got and I have a lot of faith in it. So it's it's time. And unfortunately, the same bus last year was about just under 100,000. And the same, within a year, they went up $20,000, $30,000 also. Yeah.
And we did, Janice, Director of Elder and Social Services, did contact 3 of the companies on the state bid list. 2 won't even talk to us until after the beginning of the year. And then the other one said they're looking at a year time frame. So.
The only reason I mentioned that earlier is we have 87,000 that's already been appropriated for a van, right? 87,400. So you would think with that much money that's been appropriated, that you would at least be able to enter into a contract to hold it, subject to whatever the balance is. just so we don't lose that again. If there was 12 and we're down to 4 remaining,
Yeah.
you know, in the next,
And
5
that's where
years, we just wanna
we're
make
signing
sure.
a contract in the amount of $123,000, and that's what we don't have the appropriation for. So if town meeting reserve fund transfer request is really the only other way to deal with it, you know, but that's specific for emergencies. And, you know, we run the risk if something happens drastic, then we don't have those funds available.
Right.
Steve, I asked the bus company if, you know, they don't want to hold a bus that we may or may not buy.
Right.
It's not like we're doing it with a sign of purchase and sale of a piece of land, subject to approval of the town meeting. They don't want to do that.
They don't care, yeah.
They're not going to order a truck. You know, I thought we could do it, but we can't.
Just think, because you're not asking the whole number, so you would just think that, you know, maybe they would have some flexibility there, but obviously they don't. So it is what it is.
Any other questions, comments?
Yes, to the
Rick?
chair. Question, since we are spending over about $120,000 for this van, I am assuming we have a lift on the van to accommodate a wheelchair. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, it's what they call it, 14 passenger van called 12 and 2, 12 seats, 2 handicap tie downs for that. 12 and 2, 14 passenger. Give it to a bigger bus, it won't turn around.
So the simple answer, Rick, is yes.
Yes, okay.
And-
This was talked about at the town meeting in May, and
Yeah.
quite honestly, I think everybody agreed that
I don't think,
this, huh?
yeah, I don't think there's gonna be any problem.
No, that $80,000 number was anywhere close, but.
Right.
Article 10?
Did you say you removed Article
Mr.
10?
Westgate's back.
Oh, okay.
This is gonna be it for you though, right?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
I hope so.
Exactly. Getting late.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this article speaks to some of our bylaws. As with many of the communities in the 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth that have water and wastewater, you would be hard pressed to find a community that does not have a bylaw that speaks to mandatory connection and betterments associated with the extension of water and wastewater mains. And we're no different. We have them, and it's very old, and we have not used it because all of the water and wastewater extensions that we've done have been through subdivisions that were private. I'll use Pulte Homes as the latest example, where water and wastewater was brought up Hartford Ave South, but it was not put on, the burden of the finances were not on the taxpayers or the ratepayers. It was solely on the construction aspect of the 55 and older. And because of that, the bylaw wasn't triggered. We now find ourselves probably not too far away from having a serious conversation about what if the bylaw does get triggered, and Governor's Landing is a perfect example of that. So what this article is suggesting is that, and Copeland Page and the town manager and I are working on the language as we speak. This is a placeholder article again. What we're suggesting is there may be circumstances that arise where the Board of Selectmen would like to have a little more discretion in deciding whether or not it's fair and equitable to assess betterments or to mandate that people hook up. And I will give some examples because I've had these kind of experiences in other communities where a group of taxpayers came to town meeting and packed town meeting because they were being forced by a bylaw to hook up to wastewater when a great deal of them had just spent a great deal of money having brand new septic systems installed. And this was creating a hardship. So all I'm suggesting is that the article be approved after we get all of the language put together with KP Law that gives the board, as the Water and Wastewater Commissioners, the ability to case by case determine whether or not there should be exceptions made to the bylaws. That's what this does in a nutshell. It doesn't dismiss any of its abilities. It doesn't diminish any of its abilities. They're all still there. But right now, if you should choose to try to assist any taxpayers in town because you think it's unjust or unfair, you don't have that ability because it's not written in the bylaw. And that's what this article will do.
Anything?
Fine by me? Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Give the board and the people some flexibility, so I like it.
Makes me a little nervous, but I got it. I understand.
Did he just say he liked it?
He said he liked it. It makes me a little, I don't like being in the position to have to pick and choose who has to pay taxes and who doesn't. That's just me. But I totally get the rationale for doing this, of course.
And through the chair,
Yeah.
I don't think it would come to a situation where you were excluding one person. Most likely you would be excluding a group or a project, saying that it just doesn't make sense to invoke the bylaws here when 90% of the homes have new septic systems and everything.
Or say a 10-year-old septic, right? Do you want to force all those homeowners to tie in if they only have 10 or 15-year-old septic systems? So I think in those instances, otherwise the people could actually forward an article similar to this.
But also, if the town receives state funding for sewer extension, this allows for those people that the sewer would pass. The mandatory would require they connect, where realistically, it's not the town, it's not the system users that are paying for an expansion. It's something that's being funded by, not by an outside developer, but through funding because of development that's happening. So it just gives us more flexibility. And that's all.
Right, and the intent of this bylaw is where the town and the users of the sewer system, the burden would be on them financially. Right. So they'd want to distribute that and share that with people that now have access to the sewer. But if it's funded by a developer or by the state or some outside entity, that burden doesn't fall to homeowners that are along and paying for the sewer services. So it's makes sense in those circumstances to not make that requirement. Yeah. All right, you convinced me. Thank you. Article 12.
Okay, this should be Article 11.
Thanks, Dennis.
And we do have Mike Penko on the Teams meeting, I believe.
Yes, yeah. Hi, folks. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
Mike.
Hi.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm here representing the Lakes and Ponds Committee. Also online is Ed Bergman, who's on the committee, and Bill Taylor, who's on the committee. We've got a proposal to do a study of Pratt Pond and Mill Pond using CPA funds. The CPA has voted initially to support this article, and there's a CPA hearing tomorrow night, which would hopefully confirm that support. The intent is to basically do a baseline study of both Pratt and Mill Ponds. It would include a water quality study, new water quality studies, and as well as kind of bringing together all the existing information that we know about the ponds. Pratt Pond is, as I'm sure you all know, is the most heavily utilized pond in town by far. Kiwanis Beach, there's fishing, there's ice fishing, there's boating. Mill Pond is immediately downstream from Pratt Pond. It is on its way to becoming a wetland, basically. It's showed in considerably over the years due to growth of vegetation. I don't know if you looked at the presentation that is part of your packet, you can see the aerial imagery of Mill Pond. So that's basically it. The proposal would be to hire a consultant to do this work. The study would probably take 1 to 2 years. We would like to be in place to begin the water quality studies next spring. That's why it's being requested at the November town meeting rather than an annual town meeting. The study would include public participation at some point people would get a chance to review the study and make suggestions about how both ponds could be managed going forward. I guess I'll try to take any questions. Again, Ed and Bill are also on the line if they want to chime in. Feel free. So.
Comments?
Mike, a question to you, Rick McGuire speaking. I'm for this proposal as far as looking at the water system to make certain they're appropriate for us with proper quality. Is there any way that you can structure this proposal such that within 6 months, 8 months, there'll be some interim results that come forward as opposed to waiting for the entire 2-year period and at the end we hear something? Will there be an intermediary, let's say in 8, 9 months, where you come forward and say, so far this is what we've discovered?
I think that could be definitely worked into the scope. Perhaps after the first field season, the water quality data and sediment quality data that's collected could be summarized and made available.
I'd like to see that. I think that'd be important just to keep this in view of the citizens of Upton.
Great. Go ahead.
Mike, how did you arrive at $75,000? Where'd that figure come from?
Good question, Paul. A similar study was conducted by Concord, Massachusetts, the town of Concord, Massachusetts. I believe they awarded the contract in 2013 for
they have Walden Pond and all these other big places.
They did. This was for White Pond in Concord, which is not too different of a pond than Pratt Pond in terms of size. But the cost of that award, I think, was around $50,000. So that I think was heavily weighed in on what this cost estimate is for the Pratt Pond, Mill Pond study.
So Mike, you don't have an estimate. You don't have like a quote or scope of work or anything that shows $75,000?
No, at this point we have not went out looking for quotes. We don't have a scope of work which could be advertised. Again, the White Pond study is similar. The award for that contract again was 48 to 50, so I think we're in the ballpark. And I think the study could be adjusted if the bids came in really high. Some elements of it could possibly be reduced without too much harm being done in terms of the study quality.
Bids are going to come in at $75,000 because they already know what your funding is. They want the job, it's going to $75,000 backwards.
My other question would be, Mike, along the lines of Mr. McGuire, can we come up with a reasonable number and say we're going to do halfway and see what they say to see how much more money we're going to be looking at?
Well,
I have the same problem that my good friend Mr. Byrne has over here. So we're reaching out and grabbing a number. Show me the places you went and tell me how much they're telling you it's going to cost.
Well, again, the cost estimate is based on a previous study that I think is similar to what we could do for Pratt Pond.
That's the town of Concord. We're talking about the town of Upton.
Both are in Massachusetts. Ponds are ponds, Paul. Similar problems, similar usage. I don't know, we asking us to go out and solicit quotes would postpone this study for, basically would postpone the field work for a year. If we were to go out to get quotes this winter and come back with an article at the Maytown meeting, and if that was approved, really the earliest opportunity to do field work would be in 2024. a year later.
Mr. Simon, might I make a point to ask the chief procurement officer that this is $30,000. We can't just go sign something up. We have to, there's a process that has to be followed. Am I correct, sir?
Correct. So the drafting of any sort of scope of work, I'd want to work with Mike and whatever committees and make sure that we are following correct procurement requirements.
Which is more than just saying it cost so-and-so this amount of money 10 years ago. There's more information to be had before I'm a customer.
When I think about, if you think about last town meeting, which approved $400,000 for the Grove Street Bridge design, what was that based on? That was based on previous experience with the Fowler Street Bridge, if I'm not mistaken. So you didn't ask the DPW to go out and basically get quotes for that work. I think we could certainly do that, but again, you're delaying the study by a year, and I'm not sure it would really gain much by.
He did say that CPA is going to meet on this tomorrow.
Yes.
Did I hear that?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. So, I absolutely get it, right? Like if you go to a contractor and you say, hey, I got $75,000 to spend, here's what I want to do. How much is it going to cost me? They're going to say $75,000, right? Is there a way to, put this out for quote or a bid without necessarily disclosing the $75,000 so we know, hey, this is the study, you go out. I mean, I guess they could, in theory, look at the town meeting and figure it out. It's public information. But, for the amount of money, for the fact that it's coming out of CPA, we know that these lakes and ponds need help. I mean, the pictures of Mill Pond were just shocking, going from essentially water to weeds and wetlands seasonally was just shocking. I mean, I think something needs to be done as quickly as possible with that. I don't think $75,000, for a study like this seems very reasonable. If it was $50,000, 8 or 9 years ago, what are they going to, it's not like they're going to be ripping us off if it's $75,000. So we're talking on the order of thousands of dollars here that it's going to be different. It's not like somebody's going to come in and give us a bid for $20,000 to do it. So I think, I think it's fine the way it is. Time is of the essence to just, move forward with it. It's not a raise and appropriate. It's money that is put into these accounts. And, we've got experts in the community that deal with it. I know we're experts in town finance, but they're experts in taking care of the environment and the environmental considerations in the town. So I support them in that endeavor.
I support the environment, but I also support getting, you can't take a $38,000 project in 2013 and what did they use to come to the figure $75,000 for 2022?
Yeah, it's just an estimate. I mean, I get it. I hear what you're saying.
But let's go, no.
I get, sorry.
No.
I was going to say, I get Mike's line of thinking.
I do.
I think my problem is a little bit of what everybody said. I feel with recreational area at Kiwanis, we do a pretty good job with that water. It's tested often. I think Board of Health has some money.
We do.
Weed control, I think they checked for E. coli. It was, there was some treatment that was done to it a few years ago during the summertime. So I feel pretty confident with respect to Pratt Pond. However, as you mentioned earlier, Brett, the photo, I have it up on my screen in front of me, the photo of Mill Pond is
unbelievable.
Catastrophe.
It's a catastrophe.
I would have no trouble if you said, I want to spend the entire $75,000, but I want to clean Mill Pond.
Figure that out.
Figure that out. That makes to me more sense than $75,000 on a study of both ponds. I'd rather fix the problem than kind of just analyze the problem. Again, to me, that looks like it's got to have some sort of an algae growing in it, and who knows what else. Maybe that's sediment. I'm not sure what it is.
There's
But,
two points to the chair.
I'm not, you know,
1 second.
and part also of what Rick said, I think an abbreviated timeline would be more helpful. If the focus was on Mill Pond, and we could have an answer to what is going on there, you know, in a shorter period of time versus 2 years, I think gives us a better chance and a less costly expense to mitigate the problem. I mean, I would think.
Yeah, Mike, what's your take on sort of like the value of taking 2 years to do a study versus figuring out a mitigation plan or a restoration plan for Mill Pond, or like how do you guys sort of think about those competing interests or approaches?
Okay, I'll try to address your questions. First, Pratt Pond. Well, first off, the two ponds are connected, so it kind of made sense to us to do the two studies together, kind of an economy of scale thing. But there is an issue at Pratt Pond that I think needs to be investigated. In 2017, there was a cyanobacteria bloom at Pratt Pond. Cyanobacteria, also known as blue-green algae, secrete a toxin in the water, which can harm human health and also pets. This year, this summer, there were numerous beach closures in eastern Massachusetts and Cape because of cyanobacteria blooms. The state has standards. As far as I know, the Board of Health in Upton is not testing for cyanobacteria. They're testing for basically E. coli bacteria regularly. But the cyanobacteria has kind of fallen through the cracks over the years, I think, and that's one reason for doing some work at Pratt Pond. And while you are out there sampling for cyanobacteria, you could easily do some baseline aquatic habitat studies, dissolved oxygen, temperature, things like that. So that's a case for Pratt Pond. For Mill Pond, you know, to be honest, doing something at Mill Pond would that involved restoring the water would be very expensive. I think out of the Mill Pond study would probably come roughly 3 alternatives. One would be to do nothing, basically let the pond continue to fill in. And at some point, there would be probably some sort of an equilibrium where a channel would continue to go through the pond while the rest of the pond developed into a wetland, as it's doing now. A second alternative would be to remove the dam, which would restore a section of Center Brook. And a third alternative would be to dredge or excavate the sediment, which would probably be by far the most expensive alternative, although you would get your open water, recreational, aesthetic benefits back through a dredging project. So one of the first things you want to consider in terms of the cost of a dredging project is what is your sediment quality? Is it contaminated, or is it relatively clean? Because the level of contaminants in the sediments would greatly affect the cost of the project in terms of sediment disposal. So, and this initial study, one of the things we like to do is do some initial sediment sampling at Mill Pond just to see kind of what we have there. I'm hoping the sediments there should be pretty clean. There's no industrial source upstream of Mill Pond. So that's part of the study that we're envisioning.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. And I mean, I would just reinforce from my perspective, right? Like we have experts in the community that deal in all sorts of things: roads, police, fire equipment, vehicles, inventory, running the town budget, finances, right? We've got a group of people in town that are experts in these environmental concerns, right? You just heard the amount of detail and expertise that Mike shared. And so I think for us as a group of administrators, obviously with responsibility to the town at large to maintain a level of discipline and process in the decisions and recommendations that we're making, I think that for us to at least put this before the voters, because I think we all know that if this shows up on town meeting floor, it's going to pass unanimously. So for us to hold up a $75,000 ask that we think might be a little bit more or a little bit less because we don't have an actual bid, you know, I don't know. It just seems like we wouldn't necessarily do that if it was a road or a police car. So I just want to remind us of that.
We require them to give us something, though. They're required to give something to town manager to put something on. So CPA, by the way, votes to put it to the town meeting. They don't vote on the dollar amount. So I'm sure you'll get a different opinion when you realize that they don't have a bid just out of the air saying it's going to be $75,000.
I respect that.
You guys.
Well, CPA would have to make sure that they have that amount of money available for that particular article, right?
Which I'm sure they do.
Yes, yes.
What?
But notice there,
That's a bad precedent.
I guess the question
There's
is,
bad precedent.
yeah,
In
does
your
the CPA
opinion.
look at it in the fashion of whether or not it's too much or too little, right? And I don't think.
Mike, what pocket of the CPA are you talking about?
That was not discussed. I mean, it could, I imagine, come out of either the open space recreation bucket or the undesignated funds. I suppose that will be discussed tomorrow night.
Undesignated still has to meet one of the 4 or 5 parameters of the Community Preservation Act.
Yeah, and this study would. I neglected to mention the Concord study was funded through with CPA funds, and others towns in Massachusetts have used CPA funds to do various lake restoration or lake management projects. Like Upton used CPA funds several years ago to treat Lake Wildwood for aquatic weeds, for example.
Any other questions, comments?
Just one quick, oh, sorry, did you have something?
Basically, they're targeting just Pratt Pond. From the sounds of it, they're almost saying that Mill Pond's a lost cause.
I didn't hear that. I don't know if Mike wants to address that.
That actually is similar to what I'm wondering, Maureen, exactly what you said. Mike, could you just clarify for us, when you had mentioned the focus on Mill Pond, and I don't know how you'd know this, but is there a number hypothetically that it takes to clean that pond out? Or as Maureen suggested, are you suggesting to us that it's too far gone?
I'm not suggesting that's too far gone, but the 3 alternatives I commented on, the most expensive would be dredging. I can't give you a number without knowing things about sediment quality and having an engineering basically cost estimate. But it would be expensive, and it would be much more expensive than $75,000 for the initial study. And I think that the town would have to decide is restoring a pond basically in the town center, something worth expending funds on, or will we just let it go basically to become a wetland with a stream meandering through it, or moving the dam, which would be a stream meandering through, also a wetland probably. So
I think there is an opportunity maybe to sort of, even if it was to meet again to talk about it. I did a quick search. It does look like on the Community Preservation Association website there are similar lake preservation studies that were used CPC funds, and there's 2022 town of Westford is funding for across their whole town, $176,000.
Right,
So
and I don't know that people.
I don't think, I think for the purpose of what we're talking about, this probably is gonna work because it is more finite. And again, it can always be up to a certain amount. So if the study comes in less, that just goes back to CPC. It isn't like it goes into the general fund or back, it goes right back into CPC.
And
so
just remember, we're voting to put it on the warrant and not to vote it up or down. So I agree. Okay, any other questions, comments? Otherwise, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Yep.
The last article is really an administrative article from the planning board, making change to the definition of frontage and making corresponding changes within the zoning bylaw, pointing to that single definition of frontage. So not a funding article, and is to improve clarification and consistency for zoning bylaws that reference frontage.
Okay.
So that's it. One of the things, and do recognize that we're pretty late over where I was projecting us to be after this discussion. One of the things is that through these funding articles, except for the CPC article, the funding source for these was anticipated as free cash. More than likely, free cash is not going to be certified for town meeting. So in talking to the finance director, we discussed a number of options. One, we pass over all the funding articles, which as we discussed earlier, there's a demonstrated need for those. Another option is to postpone town meeting, but we run into, our back is up against the wall for the tax classification hearing and then setting the tax rate. The third option, and this is the one that really would be option A in our mind, depending some time, is that we're looking at about whether we include the $12,000 for police, try to identify if we can use other resources, whether it's HR budget or something to offset that. We're looking at about $215,000, give or take, in funding requests and to use stabilization for that. And then when we go into annual town meeting, we take the free cash that's certified, replenish that, and then follow whatever policy we have for contributing to OPEB as well as stabilization. It's the cleanest in that it allows for these things that public safety has clearly identified a need for. If we delay those purchases, price is going to increase. And lastly, it maintains a sort of orderly November for the finance team to take care of everything they need to do for tax classification and setting the tax rate without trying to really cause a domino effect that could impact that process.
Any questions, comments? Yep.
How much do we have in free cash from last meeting?
Kenny is going to be getting me that. I don't have for right now. I'm waiting to see if he sent a text to me. However, we can't use that past June 30th. Anything that is then unappropriated after June 30th, we have to wait until it's certified. I know from what people were talking about that there was like around a $500,000 figure, but I wasn't here for that, so I don't know if that is what was true or not. I'm waiting for Kenny to let me know what that figure is.
Well, I've read and you can certify unappropriated free cash from the previous year.
Separate from the other.
Yeah, that money gets recertified, whatever's left over from the previous year, that money gets certified in with the free cash certification to begin with.
Right.
Why can't we break that out and recertify just the unappropriated funds, the free cash from last year?
You can usually ask the question.
I would.
Any other
Yeah, I'm
questions?
sure there's enough, huh?
Yeah, I think that would be much cleaner. The only other question I had or comment, Joe and I talked about this a little bit earlier, I kind of have that same question, Maureen, is if we did leave May with 500,000 in free cash, why
Right.
can't we spend that? Joe explained that maybe we can't. But Maureen
It has
said-
to be recertified, so he would have to send it in. And I don't know what the date is for certification. I have no, it's gotta be the middle of this month sometime.
And I think if it was as simple as just an additional week to certify free cash, I think it'd be worth moving the annual town meeting or semi-annual town meeting. However, it sounds like we're gonna need more time than that, so I think Maureen's got the best option if we can use it. Otherwise, we could, as Joe mentioned, we could always just make these requests out of stabilization. However, then you run the risk of 2/3 majority. You know, some of the articles may or may not pass.
They'll pass, I predict.
Three of them, you're talking about police and fire.
I predict they will all pass.
Animal people.
They will.
Pretty confident on the other one's CPC
I was
issue.
confident on all of them. One was a bridge. I think we're,
Did
all right.
we find that out?
Yeah, so let's get that
I
answer
don't
for
want to
sure.
vote on anything until we find out whether we can recertify money we already have.
And that,
Yeah.
it may realistically, especially with, as we relate to the bridge, it may be beneficial to schedule just a smaller meeting next week with the board to talk about this. We'll have this information, we'll have maybe a little bit more guidance from Dennis, and then we can discuss recommendations at that point.
Do we need anything else so are we saying we would need to meet next week as opposed to waiting 2 weeks to approve this?
I would recommend, because then it has to be posted on the 18th.
Yeah.
Realistically, I'd want them to post on the 17th.
Yeah,
So originally, if we didn't have many changes, wanted the board to vote to approve pending amendments and final town council sign off, and then have you all sign in.
yeah,
Come in to sign, but realistically, it's just gonna be cleaner. Let's just identify a time next week to meet. Yep. We can just close this out.
okay.
Posting the warrant and having a discussion about source of funding, that's two different things.
That's true.
But if it impacts whether or not you want to have it.
Right, but she's saying she doesn't want to vote on the warrant until we have the answer to the funding question, so.
How many days before?
Whether we can use free cash.
Before special
2
town
weeks.
meeting, 2 weeks.
Okay.
So it has to be
It has
next
to,
week.
18th is when it has to be
Okay.
posted.
All right,
So why don't we just target the 11th? Are you guys good with next Tuesday?
I'm good.
Yeah, it should be fine.
But
Does that work?
to one thing that Joe alluded to, there is a lot of work involved with putting together the recap sheet. And a lot of it falls on the shoulders of the town clerk, who is, she's extremely competent. She has to deal with this town meeting on November 1st and an election on November 8th. And 2 weeks prior to November 8th, she's gonna deal with people coming in and out and doing early voting. I'm just pointing out.
But what you have already is, you've already got the balance sheet in for
No,
last year.
I'm just saying, as far as what the town clerk has to do
Yeah.
with respect to, and I know she has an extremely competent assistant now, so.
Just
I
a
know
nick of
it
time,
can.
right?
So next Tuesday is good for you?
Yep.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, we'll have to work out a time and
All right.
figure out if you want to have it hybrid or what. We can figure
Yeah.
that out offline.
exactly,
That's
whatever,
fine.
whatever's.
Could you indulge me for 1 minute?
1 minute.
Oh, boy.
Hey Siri, set a timer for 1 minute.
You're getting fidgety.
As
You don't leave.
I can see the finance committee business is done for now.
Great,
We will post a meeting sometime next week or the week after to follow up on making a recommendation to this. So at that point, I will take a motion to adjourn at 9:00.
Motion to
Back to
adjourn.
council.
Last minute, article.
Second.
And how much?
Has to be a roll call vote because everybody's not here. Mr. Sean Craig is not there, so
Rick McGuire.
Paul Flaherty, aye.
Rick McGuire, aye.
Nick Ansel, aye.
Steve Burnett.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. See you later, Finance Committee friends. You're welcome to stay as long as you'd like.
Good evening, Bill.
Good? That's it. That's it, 9 o'clock. Everybody's gotta go. See you later. Go get him. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
PhD.
Right, thank you, gentlemen.
Look at that, me too. Thank you, Paul. See you, Nick. See you, Steve.
How was that fair? Everybody gets a lead.
Yeah, right.
Half an agenda to go.
We're just getting started. All right, review and approve E.L. Harvey contract for curbside collection of refuse and recyclables. Welcome.
Thank you.
To our Board of Health members. Both.
Please sit down with the chair taking off the.
Yes, that's a good thing. That's hold on with both hands. You don't want that thing flying out.
Make a first impression.
Not falling on the floor, right?
First off, I'd like to say one thing. I would appreciate it if the board would use a little bit of judgment in scheduling the meeting with other groups. Because last meeting that we had here, we were scheduled for 7:45. It was 9 o'clock. Same thing happened today. If you put down a thing for a time, it should be within reason. I know things run longer, but.
We can do a better job of that, Mr. Briggs. And we should, and I agree with you. Thank you for the feedback.
We had a joint meeting with FinCom, so we were probably on time with FinCom and obviously late for Board of Health, so.
That's all you want to go over for, E.L. Harvey originally came in at $21 a ton. We signed the contract, but they wouldn't. So now the new charge is $85 a ton. So it went from $17,640 to $71,400, which is an increase of $53,000.
Could you please repeat those numbers? 17,000 what again?
Originally it was $17,640. The new thing is $85 a ton, which is $71,400, and the difference is approximately $53,760. Now, the original quote from the that we set aside was $500,000, and the thing came in at $460. So toward that $71,000, we already have $40,000, which is in the budgeted amount. Also, as of 9/23, and I know this money goes back into the general fund, but we have sold $72,600 worth of bags in 7 months. So, you know, that somewhere along the line can be washed into.
Annually, we're usually about 130,000 a year in revenue from bag sales?
Almost, closer to.
Somewhere around that.
250.
Oh, sometimes that high, 250,000, okay.
And now that we got the yellow bags back,
yeah,
that's going to increase the.
Great. Other questions?
Not so far, it's just a big hike.
I have no questions. We looked at the contract, executed a few months to go, and it's back before us, so just unfortunate.
Well, the problem is that.
We have no options.
If you read their contract, everything says, well, it could be this, but it could also be
right.
a higher amount.
Right.
And where they refuse to sign the contract,
nothing we can do.
That's what it says at the bottom of the.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
I understand the situation we're in, so.
If the board doesn't want to sign the contract as it is, then we'll go out to rebid. Now, the problem was.
And they'll raise it.
When we had Waste Management and Casella, their contracts over the period of time were much more costly than Harvey.
Right. And Harvey knows that.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm good with it if you'd like me to motion it.
Please.
You good?
Well, I can't find the motion.
Oh, yeah, we're good. We got it.
I've got the Board of Health, but the other.
Here we go.
That's it. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the town manager to execute the revised contract with E.L. Harvey for curbside collection of refuse and recyclables from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025 in the amount of $460,000 for year one, $474,000 for year two, and $488,000 in year three, plus cost of recycling set at a monthly market rate per ton and associated work stated in the contract and specifications.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for all the work on this. I know it's a lot of the runaround, so thank you.
Just
Yep.
going forward, getting pushback.
Yeah, that's it.
And you know, as Al said, with everything going up, trash is a very costly item to everyone.
They use a lot of gas, amongst other
I
things,
think,
so.
you know, unfortunately, as we look forward, we're gonna have to look at that recycling portion of the contract and try to figure out, I know there was some data done a few years back, and try to figure out, does it make sense to enter into that portion of the agreement? Either or neither. So there'll be you're gonna have some mathematical work to do in the next 12 months, I would.
Right, and the point was that if you decide not to go with recycling, the town could be under a fine from the state. We don't know if they've actually fined anybody. There's a possibility of so much per day for not doing it.
All right, next up is the Board of Health appointment. So I think we have one applicant for that, Quinn Parks. Mr. Parks, welcome. Hello. So this is a vacated 3-year term seat set to expire on the 2023 annual town election. So if the candidate is appointed to the vacant seat, that will run through 2023 annual town election, and the seat will be placed on the 2023 annual town election ballot. At that point, it would become a 3-year term. So this would be to fill, the appointment here is to fill a vacancy through to the May town meeting. So, Mr. Parks, thank you for your interest and your application. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background and history? We all had your resume and credentials, so that was very helpful. But
Sure, absolutely. So I have a doctorate degree in immunology and microbiology from Wayne State University in Detroit. I currently work in the pharmaceutical industry and logistics. And honestly, I've always been interested in public health. Been a resident of Upton for 5 years, and I enjoy the idea of giving back to the community in any way that I can. And this seems like a unique opportunity to do so.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Parks from anyone?
Just to thank you for stepping up.
My pleasure.
I guess I'd just say, have you researched the Board of Health at all? Obviously, I don't think there's been any meetings recently because we've been down members. Have you had any chance to research Board of Health, what they do, and all those intricacies of the job?
All of the intricacies specifically, no. However, broadly, I'm aware that the board takes great interest in septic permits and also the waterways and the recycling and trash collection. And the typical day-to-day of the implementation of health in Upton is carried out through a specialized nurse.
And I would echo Maureen's sentiments. Thank you for stepping forward. Always nice to get some new faces.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great. Any questions?
No questions, but I agree with someone who has been in town 5 years, step forward. Kudos.
Thank you.
Great. You can always use the extra help, so this is great. New members of the team. Okay, so I think the way this works is Board of Health and we all get a vote. So I mean, I obviously support Mr. Parks' application.
I think somebody probably would need to make a motion for a candidate.
And then we can talk about it. Okay.
Does that make sense?
The motion is here. Okay. Yeah. So we'll make a motion and then we can discuss and vote on the motion.
Okay.
Okay. I move that the Board of Selectmen and the remaining members of the Board of Health vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 11, to appoint Quinn Parks to fill a vacancy on the Board of Health for a term expiring May 2023. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I would second that motion.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Do you need a roll call vote?
Roll call vote?
No?
Well, I mean, we're all present here, and
Right.
it's the 3 members and.
So I've got 4 ayes. Are you an aye or nay? Nay. So 4 ayes and a nay. Okay.
Are you you're an aye?
Yes.
So far, okay.
Okay. So, the motion has been made and seconded, so do we want to discuss it? Obviously, I'm assuming if we supported the motion, we would support Mr. Parks's interest, is that?
Absolutely.
Yes?
Yeah.
This is the discussion part, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was just a little bit confused about where we were in the process.
We had a motion, we seconded, now we're discussing the motion, and then we'll vote on the motion.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else.
Oh, you thought we already voted. Okay, great. All those in favor, it's the 4 of us, 1 nay, we got it.
Was there a reason for the nay? Is there anything you'd care to share?
Well, I just don't believe that we should be, not say saddled, but limited to one person. I think that, in my opinion, that, and I know it's hard to get people, and you have other boards that don't have anybody, but I just believe that it should have been maybe tabled and reopened to see if anybody else was an interest in the job. I just don't like to have one candidate and say, well, you have to vote for this.
Yeah, there's been an opening for 8 weeks, so people have applied, and we got applications, and people submitted their applications and pulled them back, so there was a lot of people that considered it and either came forward or stepped back or what have you for reasons that are only known to themselves, and maybe you, but otherwise.
Yeah, and I would only say, sorry to cut you off.
No.
But I would only say we had a situation like this actually just last, I think it was February, and I felt due to it being that close to the election, I was not comfortable appointing somebody to a seat because papers were available. People could draw papers and the seat was actually open to be run for. So at that point in time, I think I've had this situation twice in my tenure. I am a no. I do not appoint somebody if they should be running for the seat. But I feel with this amount of time, again, we're in October, there's plenty of time, and it's really ultimately it's only, time flies, it's 8 or 9 months. Unfortunately, you'll be pulling papers before you know it. So don't get too.
That's the real fun part, yeah.
Right, that's the fun part.
And I think Mr. Quinn is committed to the job.
Please, Mr. Briggs.
If you remember when Laura was appointed, we did have another candidate.
That's right.
But we did not, because the board only had 2 votes.
Yeah.
That person was not nominated.
I'm aware.
And there again, because of that, that person decided not to run.
That's their choice. That's
Well,
the great part of a democracy.
It is.
And how we work. So people make individual choices. They have freedom of choice. Mr. Parks, congratulations and thank you very much for volunteering.
Welcome aboard.
Let us know if you have any questions. You're in good hands with Mr. Briggs.
yeah.
And Laura, of course.
You'll need to contact the town clerk to
Get
Get
sworn in.
sworn in, yeah.
Very good.
Okay,
All right.
I'll send you her contact information.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
How's it going, Laura? A couple weeks in?
Yeah.
Feeling good?
Meeting tonight? Double meeting?
Love it. That's it. 9:30, you get to go home now. Good, exactly.
A
Thank
double
you.
dose of town government, right?
All right, next up, we have an appointment for the Cemetery Commission to fill a vacant Cemetery Commission seat. Mr. Palladini, please, you want to just introduce yourself and thank you first, thank you very much for your patience. We know this has been a...
I'm Alfred Palladini, 6 Brook Street, Upton. I had applied for the position of cemetery commissioner. I think that I can provide that professional liaison between I don't know, between the town of Upton, working with the funeral directors and DPW and all of that, I'd have a very strong interest in also working with, and I do have to mention the other members of the commission as well. But I'm very interested in working with the other boards and commissions, such as the Historic Commission, Historical Society, maybe the Conservation Commission possibly, if needed, and other pertinent people who may be interested or have an interest in whatever project that we happen to be working on at the time. I don't know what I can bring to the job because I'm not there yet, but all as I can say is possibly, a commitment to work with the others in getting the job done that has to be done. I don't have anything, well I do, but that would actually qualify me for cemeterian. I don't think they have a course in that. I don't, but I'd be willing to take one if they want. To my plus, okay, my mom, and I hate to, capitalize on my mom, but my mom was a genealogist. We lived in Milford. Her name was Alice Paladine Dickman. I don't know if you know her, anybody knew her. She worked in Upton, she was a genealogist, okay? Mendon, Upton, Blackstone, Bellingham, a little bit in Uxbridge, Milford, some Rutland. And she worked with, as she was being a Pickman, she was connected into the Aldrich, Taft families, and a few others. And there are very many in Upton and Mendon. And while she was doing her research, many years ago, we traveled very many cemeteries, believe me, and we lifted a lot of, portraits from the cemeteries, from the stones and stuff. But I also helped her do her research and for the genealogy. I'm looking up stuff. We went to, town halls, churches, archives. Every place around that, would have some kind of records. She probably has even been, met with the cemetery commissions in different areas. I don't know. She did a lot. She taught classes and gave tours for school children and stuff in the cemeteries and did all of the stones and stuff like that. But I haven't, but other than that, like I said, I have an associate's in liberal arts from Quinsignment Community College, and then I went to Worcester State, and I majored in psychology, sociology, with a science degree in that. Anyways, but that's what I have, and nothing there would say, okay, you've qualified to do cemetery work. I have a strong sense of history and preservation. I believe that it's very comforting to know for people who are in their final resting place, even if there's not family behind them, the tragedy is not being remembered. But I think it's very comforting for people to know that, whatever their choices are, whether they have a family coming up behind them, that where they go is going to be well taken care of, maintained, preserved, and all of that.
Thank you.
I don't know. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
I would say you're
Very
qualified.
much.
See,
Yeah,
you
right.
discounted yourself ahead of your, you
Yeah.
prefaced that by saying,
You have a lot more expertise in it than I think certainly any of us, short of the gentleman sitting in front of us. Yeah, so it's phenomenal.
On
We
the,
are at the cemetery.
Oh, please, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Do you gentlemen have any questions for Mr. Palladini? Sure.
What's your?
Mr. Palladini, you can.
Employee committee?
No, I'm currently retired. I've been retired now for 3 years.
Congratulations.
I had a work with Stop and Shop for 49 years, and 2 years with Star Market before that. I worked in the produce department in different capacities. From clerks to manager to head, assistant manager to manager and stuff like that. I've been probably in about 25 stores. I'm retired from that field.
That's great.
I started in the
That's great.
But now that I'm retired, I have time to pursue these other interests that wouldn't, and this opportunity presented itself.
Perfect.
And I probably wouldn't have bothered with it unless it presented itself.
Right.
I wouldn't have gone looking for it.
Time and opportunity is perfect, right? It's great.
And when they're talking, and somebody said, and I was talking about getting part-time employment someplace. And they mentioned,
This is going to be much better. This is going to be much better than that. For sure. This will be much better than any part-time employment.
It just doesn't pay as well.
It doesn't pay as well, and this is going to be way more fun.
Some information. I said, really? Oh, I got to do that.
Yeah, perfect. That's great. All right. Well, thank you. Good. All right.
I have
Thank you.
read very much of the heritage of Upton, the historical society.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have many of the books that.
Yeah. Is this? Excuse me one sec. Sorry. Is this a shared vote? Or
It's same thing.
Same scenario.
Everyone
Okay.
voting as
Okay.
Ward
So
5.
I will take a motion.
No, you need to understand.
You can't vote yet.
Fantastic.
Go ahead.
We can't make a decision or vote tonight. We are not posted.
My fault.
Okay.
We will.
Thursday, 10 o'clock. It's our meeting.
You are gonna post that?
Oh, no, it's posted.
Oh, it is posted.
Yeah, see,
So-
I posted it for Wednesday, but it's.
Okay.
So we have to do it as one body
One
together,
unit.
so
Okay.
it's
Meeting
either,
next Tuesday.
that would be,
Well, two things have to happen. He and I have to discuss it as a committee, and then we have to meet again to do a combined vote, I think.
so I mean, that's where you do have to do a combined. I just want to make sure you're aware that when we vote, it's not one vote for cemetery, one vote for board of selectmen. It's 5 votes.
Right.
You come together as one body, so it's voting among the 5.
We understand.
Yeah.
We're gonna be meeting on Tuesday. If we could schedule them for a joint, or the next week after that, on the 20th, we'd also be meeting again. We can put it on that agenda.
We'll follow your lead. Clearly, you have, you certainly have my support. And I would expect that you have great qualifications and interest and time, and that's the magic formula. So I think it's just a matter of the administrative part of this that you may have to be a little patient with, but.
We messed up managing the open meeting law.
Yeah.
So we can't do anything about it tonight until we have an official posting that says we're meeting. Then we can discuss it, make a decision, and tell them what we think.
Okay. All right.
So,
Thank you.
I guess the only thing I would,
Go ahead. Oh,
Just one more thing.
yeah.
Quick thing. It took me 5 years to find the cemetery up on Grove Street. And I've been willing to bet that nobody, 3/4 of the people in Upton don't know where it is. It took me 3 years just to find the cave down in Heritage Park. And I would I finally got a good set of directions. And I got directions that were like, well, it's up there on Grove Street over there, blah, 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 blah. It was never where I thought it would be.
99.9% of people in Upton don't know where that cemetery is.
On the end of the road there.
Yeah.
It was like a stone, and it had, I don't know, maybe a foot by 15 inches, whatever, and it had a 5x7 plate on it. Now, I don't know what that said. I thought that was roadkill and somebody buried it over there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, somebody buried it.
I gotta tell you, at Memorial, actually, it's our Memorial Day celebration, we visit the cemeteries. So you can look forward to that next May, where you'll get an opportunity, and you'll hear some historical perspective on all the locations.
You'll love it.
So that's something you want to put in your calendar.
We're gonna move on with all due
It's a one-horse cart road up there, and I don't think 2 cars can get by there.
That'll be a great opportunity for something to address.
Yeah.
Okay, so with all due respect, we're gonna move on. Thank you very much. That's okay. So next up, we have the Nipmuc Rod Gun Club one-day liquor licenses.
Have a good evening.
Hi. How are you?
Okay, how are you?
Great.
You want to come forward?
Come on over, introduce yourselves, and let's make it, at least those chairs are more comfortable.
Hey, let's make it.
Yeah. Make yourselves comfortable.
Yeah.
Take care. Thank you very much.
And my name is Debbie Craig.
Hi.
I'm the board of directors for the Nipmuc Rod Adventure.
I'm Allison Tomorrow. I'm the acting bar manager at the moment.
Awesome.
And I've been a member for quite a while there at the Selectmen, and I'm excited about figuring everything out that we need to figure out to be successful. So that's why we're here. We want to do everything the right way, and
Looking forward to the Halloween party.
yeah.
Be there soon. Better get this. Get this taken care of.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions, please?
I was only going to say, if you want to just briefly, just tell us a little bit about the event that you're having. Everything looks good to me, but just if you want to briefly tell us.
So it's more than one event. I filled out licenses for the rest of October and November for us to be able to rent our hall, and also some of them for our hall rentals, and some of them are for opening up our clubhouse to our members and their guests for like football, stuff like that, to be there for them to, bring in applications, have questions about anything. It's nice to be able to open up our clubhouse for them. And a lot of the hall rentals are birthday parties, baby showers, bridal showers. There's a lot of like family big get-togethers, Halloween parties, Christmas parties, things like that. Everything is pretty well organized, and hoping that we can get some day liquor licenses while we're figuring out our full liquor license right now, which I'm just learning all about all of that, so I don't have a ton of information, but I know that the board of directors have been working on that.
And we're going to be working with a lawyer also on that, to be filling out the correct paperwork to make sure that that's done correctly.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Can I just mention one thing, and I'm sure you may be aware of it already, but if you have an application pending with the ABCC, you cannot receive a one-day license.
Right now, we don't.
I know you don't, because it would have to come here first.
Yeah.
But I just wanted, for your timelines, I wanted you to know that.
Oh, thank you very much.
And you can only have a total, again, according to the ABCC, 30 per year.
If we go into December and do the weekends of December as well, I think it puts us at 27 for the calendar year.
I just wanted to know the details, but then, so once you do apply, you're not going to be able to do that.
So you know to time it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just.
I appreciate that information. Thank you.
My print.
Yeah.
There's a
And
lot
definitely, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure Sandy is willing and able to help you or advise you if you have questions.
Oh, yeah, we've been
Process,
working
yeah.
together.
Already, just to get this far. So. Awesome. All right. Great. Any other questions?
I have none. It looks good to me.
Good to me.
All right, let's do it.
I don't have the motion in front of me.
Oh, you're just saying that.
Am I up? I'm up.
You're
All
up.
Sorry.
See, everybody, when they see numbers, it's me.
Exactly. That's what it was.
I'm the numbers guy.
I saw a calculator on the table when I came in, and I'm like, I don't know who this is, but I'm going to put it over by Steve.
Not me.
Makes me uncomfortable.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the application submitted by Nipmuc Rod and Gun Club, event manager Allison Foley tomorrow, special one-day all alcohol beverages license for and events at Nipmuc Rod and Gun Club, 88 Fisk Mill Road, Upton, Mass. For the dates of October 9th, 15th, 16th, 18th, 22nd, 23rd, 29th, and 30th. November 5th, 6th, 12th, 13th, 15th, 19th, 20th, 26th, 27th, all in 2022.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous action, motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies, good luck.
Congratulations, good luck with the events.
Congratulations. Looking forward to having some fun. I hope so too, yeah.
Take care.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you, good evening. Unfortunately, Kevin and his wife came down with COVID.
Oh, geez.
Got one more day.
Oh, wow.
Fortunately for all of us, it's not here.
Yeah,
well, thank you.
thankfully you stayed away.
And I hope he's doing all right.
I think it's the worst.
Yeah, good.
We were here about a month ago, September 6th, and that was for the local spring agreement. It was reviewed by the council, approved, and Mr. Simons was good enough to come in and sign it on Friday, September 9th. We are proceeding with the closing. There was one sort of glitch in the closing. HUD has requested a waiver, and it's a waiver to the restrictive covenant. The restrictive covenant, actually there are two restrictive covenants. It's the DHCD LIP regulatory agreement, which you signed after your council approved it, and the so-called local spring agreement, which was a requirement of a comprehensive permit that springs into action only if that DHCD LIP regulatory agreement. HUD's concern is that it wants to have precedence if there's anything in either of those regulatory agreements which is in violation of the National Housing Act. That's sort of the guts of it. We comply with the National Housing Act. I don't think there's anything in either agreement that is in conflict with the National Housing Act. They want that. They initially wanted, and I told Lenders Council it's not going to happen. So you better be able to tell HUD that. They wanted us to subordinate, or they didn't want us. They wanted the regulatory agreement and the spring regulatory agreement to be subordinated to their mortgage. I explained they don't quite understand that 40B is a zoning process, and you can't sort of subordinate zoning. They can foreclose,
right?
But it's subject to a zoning permit, comprehensive permit is a special permit. You would think HUD would understand that and wouldn't waste their time asking for it. So I had to get a letter from DHCD, an email from DHCD saying, not going to do it, can't do that. So once they saw that, they agreed that that was an overreach. Ann Schroff is the lender's closing attorney. She's at Reno & Kavanaugh. Reno & Kavanaugh is a firm that's had a lot of experience with HUD. She prepared a modified waiver form, which DHCD has reviewed, is in substantial agreement with it. They had one question, and right now is reviewing that with HUD. As soon, the plan is to avoid the confusion of last time, where we had it being reviewed by the DHCD, hadn't signed off, and your council. I decided this time to wait until we get a HUD and DHCD concurrence, and then ask through Layden to have your town council. She was very, Sharon Everett was very responsive in terms of timing. So my request tonight, given the uncertainty of timing, is that you vote to authorize the chair to execute waivers. And when I say waivers, we have to have a separate waiver for each agreement, the DHCD LIP agreement and your spring regulatory agreement, subject to the approval of your town council.
So within your packet, I just realized that the motion is inaccurate. On the second page of the packet is the email from Ed that includes the proposed motion. So that's what should be used instead. So one of the things is that, we're going to have town council take a look at this. This is all such legalese that is above and beyond what really is a concern for the town. This is all the regulatory and housing entities that it's like they need to be comfortable. So we don't have that final document for the whole board. So I know the request is to authorize the chair to sign. I can send it out once town council has reviewed it. We don't know exactly when the time frame was. I know that Ed was working under some DHCD imposed timelines to try to get it in under the wire. This added this new layer. I don't know exactly what.
Right. It was a lender HUD's timeline.
So
DHCD.
Do either of you have questions?
Not particularly. My only question was, so apparently HUD has some sort of seniority over DHCD. Is that what I'm basically to summarize?
If there's a conflict between any item in the regulatory agreement, which conflicts with national housing policy, HUD's national housing policy, then HUD's requirement takes precedence over that. And I shouldn't say national housing policy, National Housing Act.
Yeah.
It's a
Which
National Housing Act.
DHCD, because it receives federal funds, has to abide by Fair Housing Act anyway. So I don't quite understand all this sort of flipping around conflicting language, because DHCD has to abide by fair housing anyway. So I think it ends up being really just these agreements end up just solidifying something that is never going to be a potential concern in the future.
I think that's...
Any other questions? No? Okay.
I'm good.
Great.
My turn?
Yes.
This one's all yours.
I move that the Board of Selectmen authorize the chairman of the Board of Selectmen to review, approve, and sign a HUD rider to restrictive covenants, a HUD rider, for the 149 Main Street Chapter 40B project in Upton, Mass., and if necessary, review, approve, and sign any necessary modifications to the present regulatory and use agreement and the local springing regulatory agreement related to the execution of the HUD rider, subject to the review and approval of all proposed documents by town council.
I would second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, I just want to make it clear that we need a separate waiver for both the DHCD LIP regulatory agreement and the springing agreement. I thought that language covered it, but I want to make sure it's clear when we bring two waivers.
Great.
That they have to be signed.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Both. Yeah, that was clear.
I believe so, yeah.
Here. Yeah. Motion carries. I think everybody was a yay.
Yes.
Aye, yes.
It
Motion
is.
carries by unanimous action. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed.
We'll see you in 3 weeks for revisals, right?
Yeah.
If it weren't HUD, I'd say no. If it's HUD, I'd say
Maybe. Good luck.
Good night.
Yeah, thank you.
Night.
Thank you for your patience.
No problem. It's always good to see local government in action.
There we go. This is it.
I'm not active in my own community.
Okay.
But it's good to see it.
It's interactive and up there.
It's entertaining. Yeah.
All the work you do.
Thank you. All right.
I actually thought that our motion was more comprehensive than his motion, but regardless.
Motion, I started off with a control sheet from the last meeting. That's why there's 2 parts. And then I know I changed it, but I don't think I changed the file in the packet. So I'm looking at it on my screen. I'm like, that's not it.
Neighbor to neighbor program update and discussion.
Okay, so one of one of the things is that, and the board all received the email from Bob Fleming from the the trust fund to me to talk about the trust funds. At the same time, we're talking about some internal processes that we can improve upon to make sure that everyone can keep track of these things. One of the things in working with Janice in getting an accounting is of what funds have been processed and which program they fell under, was looking at this neighbor-to-neighbor program and realizing that with the state of emergency being lifted, with now COVID is losing its prominence and sort of is.
That's what the president said.
And
10 months ago.
And that this was specific to give some flexibility to.
You want to abolish the neighbor-to-neighbor program.
And or look at possibilities to maybe rejuvenate it as something else.
Great.
I really like the program, but tying it to COVID, I think we need to separate.
Of course.
And there was appropriations that the board had authorized, so it's like I just want to wrap it up, push it off on the side. We can bring it back as something which may involve.
File, save as, remove COVID.
Yeah.
Great. All right.
Okay.
And so I guess,
any other questions?
Do we have to actually make a motion to abolish the neighbor-to-neighbor program? Do you know if all the funds have been
all the funds have been extended. So basically,
they'll just fall
We'll
back.
abolish it.
Yeah.
And we'll take it up as another.
So the only thing is because the board did adopt a policy that created it, I would recommend that it actually is and abolished is, but
a motion to remove the policy.
Correct. Or
okay. I'll take a motion. We can abolish it. It doesn't matter. There's 4 of us sitting in this room right now. Let's go. We all get it. Any other questions?
Is there any, do we need to have the start date to make an official motion?
I'd have it as effective today. I mean, there's no pending.
No, I mean when we initiated the program. Like, do we need to say it's a neighbor-to-neighbor program that we initiated in March of?
It was approved April 7th, 2020.
Nice.
Pretty darn good.
Sounds good, just to make it kind of official. Sandy, give you.
Very important.
I'm sorry.
He's doing that because it's his turn.
April 7th or 20th?
April 7th, 2020.
I heard that one.
I know you did.
2020. Okay. All right, so I would make a motion that the Board of Selectmen abolish the program that we initiated on April 7th, 2020 as the neighbor-to-neighbor program.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries by unanimous action. We look forward to Neighbor to Neighbor 2.0.
Yep. And for anyone that is either watching or is watching this video, the purposes for assistance still is in place.
Yep.
And that they should be directed towards the town manager's office for questions on how to provide assistance to residents in need.
Excellent.
So the last thing, just wanted to get the board's thought as far as scheduling more of a workshop. At the last meeting, we talked about we should just have an opportunity to discuss a couple of things. I had floated around an idea once we get past the finance team sort of wrapping things up to send to the state, to maybe have a workshop that talks about, some of the lessons learned, what are things we can learn and grow and put in place, and things that we will be putting in place to go forward. We also have town projects that we've all sort of talked about, but having a workshop to say, do we want to engage in a community survey? Do we want to be proactive as far as trying to identify how we can manage some of these? Because I know
Next
for annual,
week too soon?
realistically not.
Because we're just brainstorming, right?
Yeah.
We're just sort of like, all right, we haven't had an open discussion about stuff. Like, let's just spend a half hour talking. And given that we have no agenda next week except the warrant, which should hopefully be relatively quick,
Right.
Maybe we time box ourselves and say, look, we're not gonna make this a marathon. We'll do it for a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever.
Yeah.
But if, you know, like none of us wants to stay here till 11 o'clock throwing ideas around.
I was gonna say, unless we have another light agenda somewhere, if you can foresee a light agenda between now and the first of the year before we start the budget process.
Yeah.
We plug it in there, because I was figuring next week we'll just blast through
Try to
that.
get in, get out,
relatively quick.
Yeah, given that it's a consecutive meeting, why don't we just?
Yeah, but I mean, you know, it's subject to discussion, I suppose.
Yes,
It's
whatever.
kind of subject to weather, if it's next
This is
Tuesday's a crappy day, you might as well
Might
get
be,
it done.
might be
Yeah.
snowing. You don't know.
True.
I would like to bite my tongue, but it's so cold, I
You
have to
got it.
turn the heat on.
Today was the first day.
You turned it on?
It was 62. I'm like, I can't do it. Last night, this morning, Tiffany got up and went into the office. She came back down. She had pajamas, a bathrobe, a blanket, and wool socks and a hat. She's like, it's freezing. I'm like, oh, okay, this is a little much. Let's turn the heat on.
And it's only 62.
It's only
right?
62. Yeah.
It's a shock to the system.
Shock. Yep. Exactly.
But Jen, she loves it at 62.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Tiffany was like, I don't
like
care.
it at 78.
Oh, 78.
Oh, yeah, I am cold all the time.
Yeah.
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 Whoa,
It's good. You guys, you got to have separate sections of the house now to.
well, she has the air conditioner going all winter.
That's awesome. Awesome. All right, so probably not next week, but let's sort of play it by ear. You know, as we get later into this week, we'll sort of look ahead and see what it is.
Yeah.
And then sometime between now and the end of the year, just sort of informal workshop. And then if we want to do more, if we want to change it, if we want to do something specific.
Well, you had
we can do
mentioned
that.
also for next week, and that's sort of one thing I was gonna mention to Glenn and Bob, is do you want to get that done? You know, so we might
Yeah.
want to plug down in
Yeah,
if
that's
it's gonna be smooth.
Yeah.
And if they can execute their meeting and.
Yeah.
So hopefully they come to consensus. Yeah,
Right.
I was gonna say.
So
I was gonna urge them to reach out and reach out to either one of you and make sure that they were able to, you know, hold their meeting at attendance. And, you know,
They need
reach
to.
a concession.
I
Get it done.
With their meeting happening at 10 o'clock on Thursday, I'll follow up directly with Glenn right after.
Yeah.
So, yeah, realistically, they've been going for 3.5 months now with 2 members. Waiting another week when we meet on the 20th really isn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I think he sort of got the impression that it's going to be available to him.
yeah. So I mean, that's where,
I don't know.
you know, realistically,
Well, the meetings are open. I mean, they should be
Yeah,
posted open, so
right.
he's welcome to attend.
He should go to
that
the
meeting.
meetings, exactly. Okay. All right.
And
So we'll keep next week as short as possible. So, right, we won't add the workshop, we won't add the cemetery. We'll put that stuff off a little bit. Next week, we'll try to get out quick.
Yep.
And then we'll put the workshop on the agenda, put the cemetery on the agenda for either that next week or the next time we've got sort of a light agenda.
yeah.
Okay.
other question, if I may,
Please.
to town
Yeah,
council. Can you find out when we have to have free cash certified?
So Kenny is emailing the DOR representative to find out the cutoff to submit free cash. He's also gonna reach out about separating things out.
Right. I tell you, you're supposed to be able to recertify anytime, I think.
Do we have
Because
minutes?
if we can't certify free cash,
Did we have minutes?
they don't.
Yes.
Okay.
We won't.
Yes.
Put everything away.
Well,
I know, me too. That's why I just looked at this and I was like,
Oh, missed the date, we did it.
Kenny's only worried for November 1st.
Well, he has to.
I don't have the dates in front of me. What are the dates?
I take that.
I'm not sure if they were up on the screen. It's July
We don't have-
12th.
July 12th,
Doesn't matter.
8/16, 9,
Certifying both.
something and 9/20.
Actually, I think I have my emails up.
It's right on the, it's posted.
I didn't get that. Okay.
So I think we're going to skip over the executive session for 8/16 because we can do that
Yes.
at another time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had, just to share with my board members, I had, just found an error in the executive session for August 16th. So I think our regular session for the 16th.
No, executive session.
Right, but I think our regular session for the 16th is fine.
Good.
Right?
Okay.
So it's the
It's
executive.
just to, yeah.
Yeah, but we can approve regular session.
Um,
7, 12, 8, 16, 9, 20, what was the other one?
before the, I'm sorry, I'm just getting into the.
You want to do just the open meeting session, meeting minutes?
Yeah.
Makes sense?
I'm sorry, I just can't get on the website. Here we go.
Yeah. I can't fire
It was
my
September
back.
6th.
6th. So 7, 12, 8, 16, open session, not executive session, 9, 6, 9, 20.
Yep.
You said 7, 12. Do you want a motion if you have it? Do you want to just motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes of July 12th, August 16th, not including the executive session, September 6th and September 20th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous action. Thank you, Sandy. A lot.
You got caught up?
We're caught up. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We try.
There's a gajillion things going on. Thank you, Mr. Layden, as always.
So, shall I make it my pleasure?
Yes.
Do we have something else? Joe, did you have something else for us? Okay.
All right.
I will make a motion that we adjourn the meeting at, what the heck are we at here? 9:51.
Woohoo, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous action.